There is a place you know well. Perhaps you are there right now, in your mind. You are sitting in a car, but you are not moving. A sea of red taillights stretches before you, shimmering in the heat rising from the asphalt. The air is thick with the low thrum of idling engines and the distant, impatient blare of a horn. Your phone, resting in the console, buzzes with an insistent vibration. Another email, another notification, another demand on your attention. But the real noise, the truly overwhelming noise, is not outside. It is inside. It is the storm of thoughts. The presentation for tomorrow. Are the slides good enough? That invoice still unpaid. The sharp words from an argument last week replaying themselves with perfect, painful clarity. And underneath it all, a vague, heavy feeling of anxiety, a constant, low-frequency hum about the future, about what might go wrong, about who you are supposed to be. This scene, this feeling of being stuck, is more than just a traffic jam. It is a perfect metaphor for the modern mind. We have, without realizing it, built an invisible prison for ourselves. A prison whose walls are made of yesterday's regrets and whose bars are forged from tomorrow's fears. Our bodies are here, in this chair, in this room, but our minds are somewhere else entirely. They are lost in the labyrinth of the past, or racing ahead into the imagined landscape of the future, a landscape often painted with the colors of worry and dread. We are living, but not truly alive. We are present, but not really here. And this quiet, constant state of distraction, this internal fragmentation, is the deep, hidden root of so much of our stress, our burnout, and our profound sense of disconnection. But what if there was an escape from this prison? What if there was a way to find a quiet stillness even when the world outside is screaming for your attention? What if the solution was not about changing the world, but about changing your relationship with your own mind? There is a path, an ancient and gentle wisdom that does not ask you to believe in anything, but simply invites you to look. It offers not a set of rules, but a set of tools, a practical technology for the mind that has been tested and refined for over 2,500 years. It is the wisdom of Buddhism, presented here not as a religion to be adopted, but as a profound and practical guide to rediscovering the one place you have true power and the only place peace can ever be found, the present moment. Before we journey further, let us begin with a simple, direct observation. Right now, in this very moment, where is your mind? Is it here, fully, with these words? Is it feeling the weight of your body in your seat, the temperature of the air on your skin, or is it somewhere else? Perhaps it has already drifted to a thought about what you need to do later today. Perhaps it is replaying a conversation from yesterday. Perhaps it is judging these words, comparing them to something you have read before. Be honest and be gentle with your answer. If you noticed your mind was not fully here, you have just had your first direct encounter with the subject of our exploration. In the ancient language of the Buddhist teachings, this phenomenon is called the monkey mind. It is a term of profound insight and deep compassion, for it perfectly captures the restless, chaotic, and seemingly untamable nature of our ordinary consciousness. Imagine a small, mischievous monkey full of nervous energy. It cannot stay still for more than a few seconds. It is in a vast forest, and its entire existence is an endless series of leaps. From this branch of memory, it swings to that branch of future planning. From a branch of self-criticism, it flings itself to a branch of idle fantasy. It chatters incessantly, a constant monologue of commentary, judgment, and association. It sees a flower, and instead of simply seeing the flower, it thinks, "That reminds me of the flowers at my grandmother's house. I miss her. I should have called her more. I am not a good grandchild." In an instant, a simple perception has become a cascade of painful stories. This monkey is easily bored. The quiet, simple reality of the present moment is not stimulating enough for it. It craves drama, it feeds on problems, it thrives on the high-energy states of worry, irritation, and desire. It tells you that you must figure everything out right now. It insists that you must relitigate every past mistake and preemptively solve every potential future crisis. It never, ever rests. This is the state of the untrained mind. It is not a personal failing. It is the default human condition, a shared inheritance that generates a tremendous, though often unseen, amount of our daily suffering. We are so accustomed to this inner chaos that we assume it is normal. We believe that this is simply who we are. But why? Why is our mind wired in such a frantic way? The answer lies deep in our evolutionary past. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in environments fraught with immediate physical danger. The human who survived was the one whose mind was constantly scanning, constantly vigilant. That rustle in the tall grass, was it the wind or a predator? That strange fruit, was it edible or poisonous? A mind that was relaxed, present, and blissfully unaware was a mind that did not last long. Our brain therefore developed a powerful survival mechanism, a negativity bias. It became incredibly good at noticing threats, remembering dangers, and simulating worst-case scenarios. This internal alarm system was a masterpiece of evolutionary design for its time. It kept us alive. The problem is, while our external world has changed beyond recognition, we are still running on this ancient operating system. The software has not been updated. The alarm system that was designed to go off for an approaching tiger now goes off for an ambiguous email from our boss. The fight or flight response meant for a life or death physical encounter is now triggered by being stuck in traffic or by seeing a curated, perfect-looking life on social media. The threats are no longer acute and temporary, they are chronic and psychological. Our monkey mind is still scanning for predators, but the predators it finds are unpaid bills, social rejection, professional failure, and the endless, unanswerable question of what if? It is a system working exactly as it was designed to, but in a context it was never designed for. And the result is a low-grade, pervasive hum of anxiety, a feeling of being perpetually unsafe, even in the physical comfort of our own homes. Understanding this is an act of compassion. Your mind is not broken. It is not your enemy. It is simply trying to protect you with old, outdated tools. The true difficulty, the very mechanism that turns this inner chatter into deep suffering, lies in one critical error. We believe we are the monkey. We identify with its every leap, its every screech. When the monkey mind chatters with thoughts of anger, we do not observe, there is anger. We declare, I am angry. We fuse with the emotion, becoming one with it. When the monkey mind whispers thoughts of inadequacy, we do not notice. There is a feeling of inadequacy. We conclude, I am not good enough. We take the thought, which is a fleeting, impersonal event in the mind, and we make it the very definition of our being. This act of identification is subtle, automatic, and catastrophic. It is the difference between seeing a dark cloud in the sky and believing you are the dark cloud. When you are the cloud, you are helpless, defined by the storm. But when you are the sky, you have space, you have perspective. The cloud is merely a temporary phenomenon passing through your vast, open awareness. The tragedy of the untrained mind is that we spend our lives believing we are the ever-changing, turbulent weather, forgetting completely that our true nature is the boundless, unshakable sky. We become slaves to a dictator who is not even real. We exhaust ourselves following the commands of this frantic, internal voice, never once pausing to question its authority, never once realizing that we have the power to simply observe it rather than obey it. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this predicament and its solution. A man once caught a wild monkey from the forest, hoping to keep it as a pet. He brought it to his home, but the monkey was utterly miserable. The house had 5 open windows, and the monkey, accustomed to the freedom of the forest, could not bear the confinement. It would leap frantically towards one window, only to be frustrated. Then it would screech and hurl itself towards another, and another, and another. It raced around the house in a state of pure panic, exhausting itself, crashing into walls, finding no peace and no escape. The 5 windows in this story represent our 5 senses, the portals through which the mind constantly seeks distraction and stimulation in the outside world. A wise friend saw the man's struggle and the monkey's distress and offered some advice. He said, "Do not fight the monkey. Do not chase it or yell at it. You will only make it more agitated. Instead, take this strong rope and this sturdy post. Plant the post firmly in the center of the room. Then, gently, tie one end of the rope to the monkey and the other end to the post." The man did as he was told. At first, the monkey was furious. It pulled and tugged at the rope, leaping with all its might, trying to reach the windows. But the post was strong, and the rope held firm. The monkey would race to the end of its tether, be gently pulled back, race again, and be pulled back again. Over and over this happened, until finally something shifted. The monkey, realizing the futility of its struggle, grew tired. It slowed down. Eventually, it came to sit at the foot of the post. It looked around, saw the rope, saw the post, and for the first time since its capture, it rested. It found a strange kind of peace, right there, in the center of the room. The post, the Buddha taught, is the practice of mindfulness. Most simply, the awareness of the breath. The rope is the act of returning our attention again and again with gentleness to that anchor. Our mind is the monkey. Tying it to the post does not mean killing its energy or its spirit. It means giving it a center. It means providing a place of rest. It means gently training it so that instead of being a source of chaos, it can become a source of stillness and clarity. So this is the first step on our path. It is not to silence the mind, for that is impossible. It is simply to recognize its nature, to see the monkey as the monkey, to watch with a kind of detached curiosity as it leaps from thought to thought. In the simple act of noticing, a separation occurs. A space is created. In that space is freedom. In that space is the beginning of peace. You are not the chattering monkey. You are the awareness that hears the chatter. And acknowledging this simple, profound truth is the single most powerful step you can take to reclaim your inner world. Now that we have met this wandering mind, the next logical question arises. Where does it love to wander the most? What are the two favorite destinations in its relentless search for distraction? Understanding these two realms is the key to understanding the very structure of anxiety. We have now met the wandering mind, our inner monkey, constantly in motion. And like any creature of habit, it has its favorite territories, two vast phantom realms where it spends nearly all of its time. These realms are so familiar to us, so deeply ingrained in our language and our way of being, that we mistake them for reality. These are the twin illusions of the past and the future. They are the destinations that drain the life from the present moment, the breeding grounds for regret and anxiety. To find our way back to the stable ground of the here and now, we must first become cartographers of these illusions, to understand their nature and see them for what they truly are, constructions of the mind. Let us begin with the past. I invite you to try a small experiment in your mind. Reach out and try to touch yesterday. Where is it? Can you hold it in your hand? Can you visit it like a physical place? Of course not. The past does not exist. All that remains of it is a collection of traces, like footprints on a beach after the tide has gone out. It exists only as thought, as memory, as electrical and chemical signals firing within the tissues of your brain, right now, in this present moment. Yet, for something that has no tangible reality, it holds an immense power over us. The monkey mind is a master archivist, and its favorite collections are those of grievance, embarrassment, and regret. It builds a cinema inside our heads and appoints itself the tireless projector operator, and on the screen, it plays the same old films over and over again. The film of that awkward thing you said at a party 10 years ago. The film of a painful breakup. The film of a time you failed or were treated unjustly. Each time the film plays, it is not a harmless memory. The mind and body do not distinguish between a real event and a vividly imagined one. When you replay that argument, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, and stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system right now. You are not just remembering a painful experience, you are actively recreating it. The original event is long gone, but the suffering is fresh, manufactured in the present by the machinery of your own mind. It is a form of self-inflicted torment, a ghost that we voluntarily invite to haunt us every single day. The same is true even for our pleasant memories. When we dwell on the good old days, we are still escaping the present. We create a golden, idealized version of the past and use it as a yardstick against which the current moment always falls short. This nostalgia, while seemingly sweet, creates a subtle feeling of lack, a sense of loss for something that is forever gone. Whether clinging to pain or pleasure, the mechanism is the same. We are abandoning the living reality of this moment to wander in a graveyard of memories. If the past is a graveyard, the future is a land of pure fantasy. It is even less real. While the past at least has the anchor of events that once occurred, the future has no anchor at all. It is a perfect, shimmering void, a blank canvas upon which the monkey mind projects its most elaborate and often terrifying fictions. There is no such thing as the future. There are a billion possible futures, a billion potential paths, and we have no way of knowing which, if any, will come to pass. Yet, we live as if the version we worry about is the most likely one. Worry is the mind's misguided attempt to control the uncontrollable. It feels productive, like we are doing something, preparing ourselves, but what we are actually doing is rehearsing for a tragedy that will probably never happen. The monkey mind becomes a frantic fortune teller, staring into a cloudy crystal ball and always predicting disaster. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if they don't like me? What if I make the wrong choice? This litany of what-ifs is the anthem of anxiety. It is the tyranny of the imagined future. We sacrifice the concrete, tangible reality of this breath, this sensation, this moment for a phantom. We trade the richness of life as it is for the poverty of a fearful fantasy. We are like a person at a beautiful banquet who refuses to eat the delicious food in front of them because they are obsessively worrying about whether they will be hungry tomorrow. The meal is real. The hunger of tomorrow is an idea. We consistently choose the idea over the reality. This is the great theft that the future commits against the present. It robs us of our life, moment by moment, worry by worry. So if the past is a memory and the future is a fantasy, where is life actually lived? It is only ever lived on the narrow, delicate bridge that connects the two, the singular point of reality we call the present moment. This is not a poetic idea or a philosophical concept. It is the most practical, undeniable truth of your existence. Every single thing you have ever experienced has been experienced in the present moment. You can only see what is here now. You can only hear the sounds occurring now. The thoughts you think are arising now. The emotions you feel are flowing through you now. The past is a thought happening now. The future is a thought happening now. The only reality is now. This realization is profoundly empowering because it means this moment is the only place where you have any real agency. You cannot act yesterday. You cannot act tomorrow. You can only choose, speak, listen, and be right here. The weight of the entire past and the anxiety for the entire future can be dropped when we realize that our sphere of influence is simply this breath, this step, this single precious moment. At this point, a practical objection often arises. But don't I need to think about the future? Don't I need to plan? Absolutely. And this is where we must draw a crucial distinction between wise planning and corrosive worry. Planning is a constructive activity that you do in the present moment. It is calm, focused, and rational. You sit down now and you think logically about the steps you need to take to achieve a certain goal or prepare for a likely event. You make a list. You book a ticket. You study for the exam. The mental energy is directed towards a solution. Once the planning is done, you let it go, returning your attention to what is in front of you. Worry, on the other hand, is a destructive mental habit. It is chaotic, emotional, and repetitive. It does not look for solutions. It fixates on problems. It is a feedback loop of fear that goes nowhere. Planning is like being a skilled architect designing a house. Worry is like being a hamster running on a wheel inside a burning building. Both involve thinking about the future, but one is an act of intelligence in the present, while the other is an act of fear that consumes the present. There is a timeless Taoist story that perfectly illustrates the wisdom of releasing our judgments about the past and our anxieties about the future. An old farmer lived in a poor village. He was considered well off, for he owned a horse. One day, his horse ran away. All the villagers came to console him. "What bad luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. "What great luck," the villagers exclaimed. The farmer replied, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to tame one of the wild horses, was thrown off, and broke his leg. The villagers again came to offer their sympathy. "What terrible luck," they said. The farmer responded, "Maybe." A week later, military officials came to the village to conscript all the able-bodied young men into the army for a desperate war. They saw the farmer's son with his broken leg and passed him by. The villagers, whose sons had been taken, congratulated the farmer. "What wonderful luck," they cried. The farmer simply said, "Maybe." This story is a profound teaching. The farmer's wisdom lies in his refusal to write a final story for any event. He understands that life is a complex, interconnected web, and that what appears to be a disaster in one moment may be the seed of a blessing in the next, and vice versa. He lives in the maybe of the present moment, accepting what is, without projecting a narrative of fortune or failure onto it. He is free because he is not a slave to the stories his mind tells about events. He rests in the unknowing. This is the freedom that is offered to us when we learn to see the past and the future for what they are. They are mirages, shimmering on the horizon, promising water, or threatening monsters. The monkey mind, dying of a self-imposed thirst, will race towards them endlessly, but wisdom is the recognition that the only real water is right here, at our feet. The nourishment we seek is in the soil of this very moment. Our work, then, is to gently, patiently withdraw our energy from these illusions. It is to train the monkey to rest here on this delicate, vibrant bridge of now. And as we begin this training, we must look more closely at the very feeling that arises when the mind insists on living in the future. We must perform an anatomy of that feeling we call anxiety. We have seen how the mind, our restless inner monkey, habitually escapes the present moment by swinging into the phantom realms of the past and the future. We know that its favorite destination is the land of tomorrow, a blank canvas upon which it paints scenarios of worry and dread. This mental time travel creates a very specific and all too familiar emotional weather pattern, anxiety. But what is this feeling truly? If we place it under the microscope of mindful attention, what is its actual substance? Is it an external force that assaults us, an affliction that we catch like a cold, or is it something more intimate, something we ourselves manufacture? The ancient wisdom of Buddhism offers a profound and liberating insight here. For the most part, the suffering of anxiety is not caused by the events in our lives, but rather by our reaction to the events in our lives. It is a distinction that holds the key to our freedom. To illuminate this, the Buddha told a simple, powerful parable. Imagine a person walking through a forest. They are calm, enjoying their walk. Suddenly, without warning, an arrow flies from a hidden thicket and strikes them in the arm. The pain is sharp, immediate, and real. It is an unpleasant, unwelcome event. This, the Buddha said, is the first arrow. This first arrow is an unavoidable part of human existence. It represents all the painful, difficult, and challenging circumstances that life inevitably sends our way. It is the sharp word of criticism from a loved one. It is the diagnosis from a doctor. It is the unexpected loss of a job, the sting of betrayal, the pain of physical injury, the grief of losing someone we love. These are the first arrows. They happen to everyone. No amount of virtue, wealth, or planning can create a life that is entirely free from them. They are, simply, the given realities of our world. But the story does not end there. The person struck by the first arrow has a choice. A wise person, the Buddha explained, would feel the pain of the first arrow and immediately set about tending to the wound. They would recognize the pain, acknowledge its presence, and take practical steps to heal. They would pull the arrow out, clean the wound, and bandage it. They would experience the pain, but they would not add to it. The unwise person, however, reacts differently. After being struck by the first arrow, after feeling that initial, unavoidable shock of pain, their mind immediately begins to spin a story. They think, "Why me? What have I done to deserve this? This is terrible. The person who shot this must be a horrible monster. I bet this wound will get infected. What if I lose my arm? This always happens to me. I have the worst luck. My life is ruined." And as they think each of these thoughts, they reach into their own quiver, pull out a second arrow, and stab themselves with it in the very same spot. Then they pull out a third arrow of self-pity, and a fourth of blame, and a fifth of catastrophic fantasy. This, the Buddha said, is the second arrow. It is the arrow of our own reaction. The pain of the first arrow is unavoidable, but the suffering of the second arrow is entirely optional. It is self-inflicted. Anxiety is the quintessential second arrow. Let us map this onto a common, modern experience. The first arrow arrives in the form of an email from your boss with the subject line, "We need to talk." That is the event. It is neutral data. The first arrow might be a slight jolt of adrenaline, a moment of uncertainty. It is a mild, manageable pain. Now, watch for the second arrow. The mind immediately launches into its narrative. This is it. I'm being fired. I must have done something wrong on that last project. I knew I wasn't good enough for this job. How will I pay my bills? This is a catastrophe. This entire cascade of fearful, frantic thought is the second arrow. Or rather, it is a volley of dozens of second arrows, each one compounding the suffering of the last. The initial event, the email, is a tiny splinter. The anxiety we feel is a gaping wound we have carved around it with the knives of our own thinking. The suffering does not come from the email. It comes from the story we tell ourselves about the email. The first arrow is the reality. The second arrow is our interpretation of reality. And we live almost entirely in the realm of our interpretations, mistaking them for the truth. This is a habit, a deeply conditioned mental reflex that we have been practicing our entire lives. We are so skilled at shooting these second arrows that we do it automatically, unconsciously. We do not even realize we are the ones holding the bow. We believe the suffering is coming from the outside world, from the event itself, and this belief renders us helpless victims. To understand why we are so quick to launch this second arrow, we need to look at the psychological engine that drives it. In the Buddhist model of the mind, this engine is powered by the twin forces of craving, or tanha, and aversion, or dosa. They are two sides of the same coin of wanting reality to be different than it is. Craving is the desperate pull towards what is pleasant. We crave security, certainty, comfort, praise, and control. We want life to be a smooth, predictable, enjoyable experience. We want a guarantee that everything will be okay. Aversion is the violent push away from what is unpleasant. We have a deep aversion to insecurity, uncertainty, discomfort, criticism, and loss of control. We want to build a fortress around ourselves that will keep out all pain, all difficulty, all unpredictability. Anxiety is the smoke that rises from the friction of this constant internal war. It is the psychic tension generated by a mind that is perpetually grasping for what it wants and pushing away what it does not want. When the first arrow strikes, it is a direct assault on this entire project. It shatters our illusion of control. It introduces the uncertainty we so despise. And in response, our mind, fueled by craving and aversion, launches the second arrow of worry as a desperate, misguided attempt to regain control, mentally solve, fix, or escape the unpleasant reality that has just presented itself. It is a futile gesture, an act of resistance against the fundamental nature of life, which is inherently uncertain and uncontrollable. The path to peace, then, is not about becoming a perfect warrior who can dodge every first arrow. That is an impossible fantasy that only creates more tension. Life will always have its first arrows. The true practice, the achievable path to freedom, is to learn how to not shoot the second one. It is about cultivating the wisdom and the presence of mind to notice the impulse, to pick up that second arrow, and to gently, consciously let it drop. The space between the first arrow striking and the second arrow being launched is the most important space in our entire psychological world. In the beginning, that space is infinitesimally small. The first arrow hits, and the second is fired in the same instant. But through the practice of mindfulness, we can begin to widen that space. We can create a sacred pause. The first arrow strikes a critical comment, a moment of fear. Instead of immediately reacting, we pause, we breathe. We bring our attention to the raw, physical sensations of the first arrow. We feel the heat in our face, the tightness in our chest, the hollowness in our stomach. We allow these feelings to be there without judgment and without immediately adding a story on top of them. We feel the pain, but we refuse to add the suffering. We allow the first arrow to be just a first arrow. We let it pass through us without giving it a narrative, a history, and a future. This is not easy. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is the most compassionate work we can do for ourselves. It is the art of letting reality be what it is, without waging a painful, losing war against it. So, the anatomy of anxiety reveals a profound truth. The greater part of our suffering is not what happens to us, but what we add to what happens to us. It is the story we tell, the resistance we mount, the second arrow we so readily inflict upon ourselves. Our freedom, therefore, lies in that precious sacred space between stimulus and response, between the first arrow and the second. But this raises a further, deeper question. Who exactly is this I that feels so wounded by the first arrow? Who is this self that is so quick to feel defensive, so compelled to spin stories of blame and fear? To find an even deeper peace, we must turn our attention inward and investigate the very nature of this self that seems to be at the center of all our suffering. We have journeyed through the mind's restless nature, its phantom playgrounds of past and future, and the anatomy of the second arrow, the self-inflicted wound of anxiety. With each step, we have been circling a central mystery. We ask, who is it that wanders? Who is it that fears the future? Who is it that feels the sting of the second arrow? The answer seems obvious. It is I. This I is the main character in our life story, the hero of our personal drama. It is the center of our universe, the subject of every thought, the feeler of every feeling. But what if this I, this self that feels so solid, so constant, and so very important, is not what it appears to be? What if it is the most subtle and convincing illusion of them all? What if it is not a fortress to be defended, but a prison to be escaped? This investigation into the nature of the self is perhaps the most profound and liberating inquiry offered by Buddhist wisdom. From the moment we are born, the construction of this I begins. It starts simply with a name. We are given a label, and we learn to respond to it. Then, we are given a body. We learn to associate this collection of flesh, bone, and sensation with that name. This is me. Soon, the building materials become more complex. We begin to collect memories, and we stitch them together into a story. I am the one who fell off my bike. I am the one who won the award. I am the one who was hurt. Each memory becomes a brick in the wall of our identity. We add beliefs and opinions to the structure. I am a person who thinks this way about politics. I am someone who likes this kind of music and dislikes that kind. Our preferences, judgments, and ideas become the furniture within our house of self. Then come the roles, the costumes we wear in the world. I am a parent, a child, a friend, a worker, an artist. We identify so strongly with these roles that we often feel lost when they change or disappear. The structure is reinforced by our possessions, our accomplishments, our relationships. All of these elements, name, body, memories, beliefs, roles are assembled, piece by piece, into a composite character we call I. We create a mental avatar, a collage of thoughts and stories, and then we spend the rest of our lives believing that we are this collage. The problem is, this structure is like a house of cards. It looks like a solid entity from a distance, but it is made of nothing more than flimsy, transient thoughts. And because it is so inherently fragile, we must spend a tremendous amount of energy protecting it. This is the source of so much of our anxiety and conflict. Because the ego, this constructed I, is not a solid, independent reality, it lives in a state of perpetual insecurity. It needs constant validation from the outside world to maintain its illusion of existence. It is a ghost that needs others to believe in it to feel real. This is why criticism stings so much. When someone criticizes our opinion, it is not just an abstract idea being challenged. The ego hears, "You are wrong," which it translates to, "You are worthless." A brick is being pulled from its fragile wall. This is why we have such a desperate need to be right, to win the argument, to have the last word. It is the ego fighting for its own survival. This is why we fear failure so intensely. An event of failure is not just an outcome. The ego interprets it as a verdict on its very being. I am a failure. The whole house of cards shudders. This inherent insecurity fuels the endless, exhausting habit of comparison. The ego measures its worth relatively. It can only feel up if someone else is down. It needs to be smarter, richer, more attractive, or more successful than someone else to feel secure. This is a game that can never be won, a hunger that can never be satiated, because there will always be someone else to compare ourselves to. The ego is a tireless defender, a paranoid king ruling over a kingdom of thoughts. It is defensive, sensitive, and quick to take offense, because it is protecting a fiction. It is a full-time job, and the salary is paid in anxiety, stress, and a chronic sense of separation from others. The escape from this prison is not a dramatic act of demolition. We cannot, nor should we try to, simply destroy the ego. It is a necessary tool for navigating the world. The escape is a much quieter, more subtle revolution. It is a shift in perspective, a fundamental change in our relationship with our own thoughts and feelings. It is the practice of disidentification. It begins with a simple yet profound change in our internal language. Ordinarily, when a strong emotion arises, we fuse with it. We say, "I am angry." In that statement, there is no separation. The I and the anger have become one and the same entity. The practice of disidentification invites a different phrasing. I notice that a feeling of anger is present in me. Can you feel the difference? It is the difference between being the storm and being the sky that holds the storm. In the first statement, you are the anger. In the second, you are the calm, spacious awareness that is witnessing the anger. The anger is an event happening within you, not the entirety of you. When a worried thought appears, instead of thinking, "I am so anxious," you can learn to observe, there is a thought of worry. The mind is producing worry right now. This is not an intellectual trick. It is a radical act of reclaiming your true identity. You are not the fleeting thought. You are not the passing emotion. You are the silent, unmoving consciousness in which all these things arise and pass away. By ceasing to identify with the contents of your mind, you stop feeding them. An emotion or a thought, when you are identified with it, has immense power over you. But when it is simply observed with a kind of friendly curiosity, it loses its grip. It becomes just a cloud passing through the vast sky of your awareness. This creates a space, a buffer, a zone of freedom. In that space, you have a choice. You are no longer compelled to act out every emotion or believe every thought. You are no longer a slave to the whims of the insecure ego. There is a famous Zen story that captures this principle perfectly. A highly respected university professor, a man known for his vast knowledge, came to visit a Zen master to inquire about the nature of enlightenment. As was tradition, the master welcomed him and offered him tea. The professor, however, was not really there to listen. He was there to show off. He talked endlessly, detailing his deep understanding of various spiritual philosophies, quoting ancient texts, and explaining his own complex theories. He was, in effect, giving a lecture. The Zen master listened patiently. As the professor talked, the master began to pour tea into his guest's cup. He filled the cup to the brim, and then he kept pouring. The hot tea overflowed, spilling onto the saucer and then onto the table. The professor, startled out of his monologue, shouted, "Stop! The cup is full! No more will go in!" The Zen master stopped pouring, looked at the professor, and said calmly, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you anything about Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The full cup is the ego. It is the I that is certain it knows, the self that is cluttered with beliefs, judgments, and preconceived notions. It leaves no room for anything new, no space for true wisdom to enter. The path to peace requires the humility to empty our cup, the willingness to let go of our rigid identification with what we think we know. It requires us to see that this I we cherish so much is the very thing blocking our view. The prison of the self, then, is a strange one. The door is not locked from the outside. In fact, there may not even be a door. We are not truly prisoners. We are more like actors who have forgotten that we are on a stage. We have become so lost in our role that we have forgotten our true nature, which is the silent witness of the entire play. The practice of deconstructing this false identification is the act of remembering. It is the first step towards walking off the stage and out of the prison cell. But to do this, we need more than just theory. We need a practical tool, an anchor that can hold us steady as we perform this subtle inner work. We need something that can reliably bring us out of the stories of the ego and into the reality of direct experience. This brings us at last to the very foundation of practice, the simplest and most powerful tool we possess, the breath. We have journeyed deep into the architecture of our own minds. We have explored the restless monkey, the phantom lands of past and future, the painful sting of the second arrow, and the fragile, prison-like house of the ego. We may feel as though we have been mapping a vast, stormy, and treacherous ocean. It is a vital exploration, but it can also be disorienting. The natural pressing question that arises is this: in the midst of this turbulent inner sea, is there an anchor? Is there something solid, something real, something we can hold on to when the waves of thought and emotion threaten to overwhelm us? The answer is yes. And the anchor is so simple, so close, and so humble that we almost always overlook it. It is your breath. This is the starting point, the foundation, and the ultimate refuge of the entire path. It is the master key that unlocks the door to the present moment. Think of its qualities. First, it is always with you, from the moment of your birth to the moment of your death. You do not need to buy it, download it, or subscribe to it. It requires no special equipment or location. Second, it is always, unfailingly, in the present. You cannot take a breath in yesterday, nor can you take one in tomorrow. Each breath is a fresh new event occurring right now. To be aware of your breath is by definition to be aware of the present moment. And third, it is utterly free. It is the most democratic and accessible tool for transformation in existence. The practice itself is one of radical simplicity. Its simplicity is its genius, but it is also why the restless, complexity-loving mind can be so quick to dismiss it. So let us approach it not as a task to be achieved, but as an experiment in gentle awareness. Wherever you are, I invite you to settle your body. You do not need to sit in a special posture, but if you can, allow your spine to be upright but not rigid, in a posture of dignity. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let your hands rest in a way that feels natural. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, simply lower your gaze and let your vision be soft and unfocused. Now, without changing a single thing, simply bring your attention to the fact that you are breathing. Your only job for the next few moments is to become a curious scientist observing a natural phenomenon. You can choose a primary landing spot for your attention. For some, a good spot is the tip of the nostrils. Just rest your awareness there and feel the subtle sensations. Feel the coolness of the air as it enters your body on the in-breath. Feel the slight warmth of the air as it leaves your body on the out-breath. Cool and warm, in and out. There is nothing else to do. Another excellent landing spot is the abdomen. You can place a hand there if it helps. Simply feel the gentle, rhythmic rising of the abdominal wall as you breathe in, and the gentle falling as you breathe out, rising and falling. Like the gentle waves of the ocean, the most important instruction is this: do not try to control your breath. Do not try to make it deeper or slower or smoother. The goal is not to achieve a special kind of breath. The goal is to be aware of the breath exactly as it is. If it is shallow, know that it is shallow. If it is deep, know that it is deep. You are the witness, not the director. Let the body breathe itself. Your only task is to watch, to feel, to be present with this simple, life-sustaining rhythm. Why is this one simple act so profoundly transformative? How can something as mundane as watching the breath unravel the complex knots of anxiety and ego? The reasons are both psychological and physiological. Firstly, as we have seen, the breath is an anchor in the now. The monkey mind is a time traveler, constantly leaping into the past or the future, but the breath is a steadfast resident of the present. When your mind is lost in a spiral of worry about a future event, the instruction to feel the physical sensation of the air entering your nostrils acts as a powerful circuit breaker. It yanks your attention out of the abstract, illusory world of thought and plants it firmly in the concrete, tangible reality of the body. You cannot worry about tomorrow and feel the sensation of your breath at the exact same time. The mind must choose, and with practice, you learn to gently, repeatedly choose reality over illusion. Secondly, the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body. In our modern head-focused lives, we often experience a profound sense of disconnection from our physical selves. We live in our thoughts, treating our bodies as little more than vehicles to carry our brains from one meeting to the next. This disconnection is a source of great anxiety. Focusing on the breath reunites this ancient partnership. It brings the scattered, frantic energy of the mind down into the grounding, stable reality of the body. It reminds us that we are not just a bundle of thoughts. We are living, breathing organisms. Finally, observing the breath has a direct and powerful effect on our nervous system. When we are anxious, our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, is activated. Our heart rate increases, our muscles tense, and our breathing becomes rapid and shallow. The simple act of turning your attention to your breath, even without intentionally changing it, sends a powerful signal of safety back to your brain. It communicates that you are not, in fact, being chased by a predator. This helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. The heart rate begins to slow, the muscles begin to relax, and a sense of calm begins to permeate the body. This is not a placebo effect. It is a direct physiological consequence of where you place your attention. Now, a crucial point must be made, one that is vital for anyone who attempts this practice. As you try to rest your attention on the breath, your mind will wander. This is not a possibility. It is a certainty. After a few breaths, maybe even one, you will find yourself lost. You will be planning your dinner, rehashing an argument, or drifting in a daydream. This is not a sign that you have failed. This is not a sign that you are bad at meditation. This is simply the monkey mind doing what it does. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is the single most important moment in the entire practice. That moment of realizing, oh, I'm lost in thought, is the moment of mindfulness itself. It is the moment you have woken up. The real practice is not the ability to stay on the breath without distraction. The real practice is the gentle, patient, and compassionate act of returning over and over and over again. Every time you notice you have wandered and you gently escort your attention back to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. Think of it as a bicep curl for your brain. The magic is not in holding the weight up indefinitely. It is in the repetition of the curl, and the quality of your return is everything. If you notice you've wandered and you react with frustration, I can't do this. My mind is a mess. You are just shooting a second arrow at yourself. The practice is to notice, and then, with the kindness you might use to guide a lost puppy, you gently say, "Ah, wandering," and you softly guide your attention back to the rise and fall of your belly. This patient, persistent returning is the very heart of the practice. This simple, humble practice is not merely a relaxation technique. It is the very path to liberation that the Buddha himself walked. After years of searching, of studying with different teachers, of practicing extreme forms of asceticism that nearly killed him, the man who would become the Buddha sat down under a large tree, later known as the Bodhi tree. He did not engage in some highly complex visualization or esoteric ritual. His core resolve was simple: to sit and to be with his breath. He watched his in-breath and he watched his out-breath. And using this simple, unwavering anchor, he watched the storms of his own mind. He saw thoughts arise and pass away. He saw feelings emerge and dissolve. He saw the nature of the ego, the truth of impermanence, and the mechanics of suffering. Through the portal of his own breath, he saw the nature of reality itself, and he woke up. This story serves as the ultimate endorsement for this practice. It shows us that the simplest tool can be the most powerful one. The path to the most profound peace does not necessarily lie in the most complex technique. It lies in the consistent, patient application of the most fundamental one. Your breath, then, is your home base. It is a sanctuary that is always available to you, a quiet room you can step into 1,000 times a day. When you are feeling overwhelmed in a meeting, you can feel one breath. When you are stuck in traffic, you can feel one breath. In the space between a trigger and your reaction, you can find refuge in one breath. It costs nothing, requires no one's permission, and its benefits are immediate and cumulative. It is the beginning of the journey inward. From this stable anchor, from this newfound ground in the present moment, we can now begin to safely expand our field of awareness. We can move from the anchor of the breath to explore the wider sanctuary that is always with us, our own body. Having found our anchor in the constant, gentle rhythm of the breath, we have established a home base in the present moment. The breath is our point of return, our trusty post to which we can tie the wandering monkey of the mind. Now, with this anchor of stability, we can afford to become a little more adventurous. We can begin to expand our field of awareness from a single point to the entire territory in which that point is located. We can begin to explore the very vessel of our lives, the physical landscape of our own body. For most of us, our relationship with our body is a complicated one. We tend to live in one of two extremes. Either we ignore it completely, living entirely in our heads, treating our body as a mere taxi service for our brain, only paying attention to it when it screams at us with pain or illness. Or we treat it as an object of intense scrutiny and judgment, a project to be endlessly improved, criticized, and compared to others. We stand before a mirror and see only flaws. We feel an ache and become angry with our body for its perceived weakness. But there is a third way, a path of gentle homecoming. This path invites us to inhabit our body not as a judge or a stranger, but as a kind and curious resident. It invites us to see the body for what it is, our most faithful companion, a wise teacher, and an unwavering anchor in the reality of the here and now. For while the mind is a master time traveler, the body exists only in the present. It cannot live in yesterday or tomorrow. To feel your body truly is to arrive fully in this moment. This homecoming is best initiated through a practice known as the body scan. It is a systematic journey of attention, a deliberate exploration of your physical self, not with the intention to fix or change anything, but simply to notice, to feel, and to be present with what is there. So I invite you now, if you are able, to find a comfortable position. Lying down on your back is ideal for this practice, as it allows the body to be fully supported, but sitting comfortably in a chair is also perfectly fine. Let your arms rest by your sides and your legs be uncrossed. Take a few moments to settle in, feeling the points of contact between your body and the surface beneath you. And with a few conscious breaths, allow yourself to arrive here. Now, gently bring your awareness all the way down to your feet, and begin with the toes of your left foot. Without wiggling them, can you simply feel them from the inside? Bring a gentle, friendly curiosity to this small part of your body. You might feel a sensation of tingling, or warmth, or coolness. You might feel the pressure of a sock, or the contact between the toes, or you may feel nothing at all. And if you feel nothing, simply be aware of the absence of sensation. That too is a valid experience. There is no right or wrong way to feel. Now expand your awareness to include the sole of your left foot, the heel resting against the floor, the top of the foot. Just feeling, just noticing. Slowly, let your attention travel up into your left ankle, your lower leg, your shin, and your calf muscle. Let it bathe your left knee in awareness, and then move up into the large muscles of your thigh. And for a moment, hold your entire left leg in your awareness, from the tips of the toes to the top of the thigh. Now, gently let go of the left leg and shift your attention over to the toes of your right foot and begin the same journey on this side. Slowly, patiently, feeling the toes, the sole, the heel, the top of the right foot, moving up into the ankle, the lower leg, the knee, and the right thigh, holding the entire right leg in a field of warm, accepting awareness. Now bring your attention to the pelvic region, the bowl of the pelvis, the hips, noticing the weight and solidity here. From there, let your awareness begin to travel up the torso. Bring your attention to your abdomen, and perhaps here you can reconnect with the breath, feeling the gentle rise and fall of the belly, a soft, rhythmic movement. Then expand your awareness to include your lower back. This is an area where many of us hold tension. See if you can just meet whatever sensations are there with a soft, allowing presence without needing to wish them away. Let your attention travel up into your chest, feeling the subtle movements of the ribs with each breath. Be aware of your heart, beating steadily in your chest, a faithful drum you so rarely listen to. Move your awareness to your upper back and your shoulder blades, another common storage facility for stress. Just notice. Let your attention now flow down both of your arms simultaneously, down through the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms, down into your hands. Pay special attention to your hands, the palms, the backs of the hands, and each finger one by one. Our hands are so active, so often clenched. Can you just allow them to be at rest, feeling the life, the tingling, the energy within them? Now, bring your attention back up your arms to your shoulders and into your neck and throat. And finally, let your awareness travel through your face. Soften your attention around your jaw. Many of us clench our jaw without realizing it. Let your awareness feel your mouth, your lips, your nose. Be aware of your eyes, resting gently in their sockets, and be aware of your forehead, inviting any tension there to smooth out and soften. Lastly, bring your attention to the very top of your head, the crown, and then, for a final moment, see if you can be aware of your entire body, all at once, as a single field of sensation, breathing, alive, a universe of sensation in this moment. So why do we do this? What is the wisdom in this simple, slow journey through the body? Firstly, it is a profound method for revealing and releasing stored tension. Our mental and emotional lives are written into the tissues of our bodies. The anxiety about a deadline becomes a tightness in the shoulders. The unspoken anger becomes a clenched jaw. The grief we have not processed becomes a heaviness in the chest. These holding patterns are often unconscious. We carry them around all day, every day, without realizing the immense energy they consume. The body scan is like turning on a light in a dark room. The gentle, non-judgmental light of your awareness shines upon these tense areas. And in many cases, that awareness itself is enough to begin a process of release. When a tense muscle is truly felt, without resistance, it is often given the permission it needs to let go. You are not forcing it to relax. You are creating the conditions in which it can relax naturally. Secondly, this practice teaches you the language of your body. Your body is constantly communicating with you through the language of sensation, but for most of your life, you have not been listening. You have been living in the noisy room of your thoughts, ignoring the quiet, wise voice from downstairs. An ache is not just a nuisance, it is a message. A feeling of openness in the chest is not an accident, it is a signal. The body scan is a course in learning this native language. It is a process of becoming intimate with the truth of your own experience, unfiltered by the stories and judgments of the mind. This practice ultimately leads to a radical shift in your relationship with your body. For many of us, the body is an adversary. It gets old, it gets sick, it is never quite the shape or size we want it to be. We see it as flawed, untrustworthy, and separate from our real self, the thinking self. The body scan is a practice of profound compassion that can heal this painful split. It is an act of friendship. With each moment of kind attention, you are saying to your body, I am here with you. I am listening. I accept you as you are. You are turning away from the critical voice in the head and turning towards the felt reality of your physical being. Over time, this transforms the body from a source of conflict into a sanctuary. It becomes a reliable place of refuge. When your mind is chaotic and the world feels overwhelming, you can always come home to the feeling of your feet on the floor, or the sensation of your hands, or the rhythm of your breath in your belly. Your body becomes your ally, your ground, your safe harbor in the storm. This quality of embodied presence is not confined to the formal practice of a body scan. It can be integrated into every moment of your life. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh beautifully illustrated this with the example of washing dishes. He said there are two ways to wash the dishes. The first is to wash them in order to get them clean, so you can move on to the next thing, like having a cup of tea. In this case, you are living in the future. The second way is to wash the dishes in order to wash the dishes. It means you are fully present for the act itself. You are aware of the warmth of the water on your hands. You feel the smoothness of the plate. You smell the scent of the soap. In that moment, the simple act of washing dishes becomes a meditation, a sacred ritual, a joyful experience of being alive. This is the fruit of the body scan. The same quality of intimate sensory awareness you bring to your toes can be brought to the feeling of water on your skin, the taste of food in your mouth, the sensation of the wind on your face as you walk. Every physical act becomes an opportunity to wake up, to come home to your body, to land squarely in the present moment. Your body, then, is your most immediate and tangible connection to reality. It is the living, breathing antidote to the abstract, illusory worlds of past and future. By learning to inhabit it with kindness and curiosity, by treating it not as an object but as a sanctuary, you build a foundation of unshakable peace that is always available to you, no matter what storms may rage in your mind. Having now established our anchor in both the breath and the body, we are far better equipped to turn and face the most challenging inhabitants of our inner world, the very architects of our anxiety, our own thoughts. Having seen the landscape of reality for what it is, having unfolded the map of right view, we arrive at a crucial and deeply personal turning point in our journey. A map, after all, is only a piece of paper, a collection of lines and symbols, until we orient ourselves to it. It shows us where the mountains of suffering are and where the valleys of peace lie, but it cannot by itself determine the direction of our travel. This is where the second step of the path, right intention, comes into being. It is the act of setting the compass of our heart. It is the quiet, internal alignment that precedes every meaningful step we take. Before a single word is spoken, before a single action is performed, there is an intention, a subtle turning of the mind, a silent whisper that sets the entire chain of cause and effect into motion. This is the seed from which our reality grows. In our ordinary lives, we rarely examine our intentions. They are often driven by deep, subconscious currents of wanting something, of pushing something away, or of simply confirming what we already believe. Our thoughts seem to be our own, but more often than not, they are the echoes of old habits, ingrained reactions, and the ceaseless demands of a self that feels perpetually incomplete. The intention is to acquire, to protect, to defend, to become. It is a reactive state, a constant, low-level anxiety of managing our world. Right intention, or samasankappa in the ancient Pali language, is a radical departure from this default mode. It is the conscious and deliberate cultivation of a different quality of thought, a different motivation for being. It asks the most fundamental question, why? Why am I thinking this? What is the energy, the motivation behind this mental impulse? It is the shift from a reactive mind to a creative mind, a mind that consciously chooses the seeds it will plant in the fertile soil of the present moment. The Buddha, in his profound understanding of the human heart, distilled right intention into 3 essential streams. These are not commandments to be obeyed, but rather qualities of heart to be cultivated, like tending a garden. They are the intention of renunciation, the intention of loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness. Let us first explore the intention of renunciation. The word itself, renunciation, can sound harsh to the modern ear, conjuring images of self-denial and a grim turning away from the world's joys. But this is a misunderstanding. The Pali word, nekkhamma, is better understood as letting go or yielding. It is not about depriving ourselves, but about unburdening ourselves. Imagine you have been walking for miles with a heavy backpack filled with stones you thought were precious. The intention of renunciation is the wisdom to stop, to look inside the backpack, and to willingly put down the stones that are merely weighing you down. What are these stones? They are our obsessive attachments, our grasping at pleasure, our clinging to opinions, our desperate need for things to be a certain way. Renunciation is letting go of the demand that life must please us. It is the release of the constant, exhausting effort of trying to control the uncontrollable. It is the simple, profound peace that comes from wanting less. This intention does not mean you cannot enjoy a beautiful sunset, but it means you don't suffer when the clouds roll in. It means you can appreciate a moment of joy without desperately trying to make it permanent. It is the quiet recognition that freedom is not found in getting everything you want, but in no longer being a slave to your wants. It is the spaciousness that opens up in the mind when we stop filling it with craving. The second stream is the intention of loving kindness, or avyapada. This is the direct antidote to the poison of ill will, anger, resentment, and hostility. It is the conscious cultivation of an attitude of goodwill, a gentle warmth extended to all beings without exception. This begins with ourselves. So often, our inner world is a harsh landscape of self-criticism and judgment. The intention of loving kindness is to first offer that warmth inward, to allow yourself the same grace you might offer a dear friend. From there, it radiates outward. It is the silent wish. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. This is not about forcing an artificial feeling of affection for those we find difficult. You do not have to like everyone, but you can hold the intention not to wish them harm. You can choose not to water the seeds of anger in your mind. Why? Because holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Ill will constricts the heart and poisons our own experience of life. The intention of loving kindness is an act of profound self-care. It softens the mind, making it a more spacious and pleasant place to inhabit. It is the recognition that another person's actions come from their own complex web of causes and conditions, their own suffering. With this intention, we stop taking everything so personally. The world is no longer a battlefield, but a vast field of beings, each like us, simply trying to find happiness and avoid pain. The third stream is the intention of harmlessness, or avihisa. This flows naturally from loving kindness and deepens it into an active principle. It is the intention not to cause harm in thought, word, or deed to any living being. It is a profound commitment to compassion. While loving kindness is the wish for others to be happy, compassion, or karuna, is the heart's response to seeing that they are not. It is the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering. The intention of harmlessness asks us to consider the consequences of our actions, our consumption, and our choices. It guides us to live in a way that minimizes the harm we inflict upon the world, upon other creatures, upon each other, and upon ourselves. It is the gentle hand that refrains from crushing the ant, the thoughtful mind that avoids participating in systems that exploit others, and the quiet voice that refuses to pass on a piece of harmful gossip. It is a deep and abiding respect for the interconnectedness of all life. It understands that every act of harm sends ripples out into the world, and every act of non-harming contributes to the world's healing. These three intentions, renunciation, loving kindness, and harmlessness are the three main channels for purifying the mind. They work together, supporting and deepening one another. When we let go of our grasping, renunciation, it becomes easier to feel goodwill, loving kindness. When we feel goodwill, the desire to cause harm, harmlessness, naturally dissolves. This is the internal alchemy of the path. But how do we practice this in the chaotic reality of daily life? The practice begins with mindfulness, with the simple act of noticing our thoughts as they arise. This requires patience and a lack of judgment. An angry thought appears. Instead of either immediately acting on it or scolding ourselves for having it, we can simply note it. Ah, there is anger. We treat it like a cloud passing in the sky of the mind. It is not my anger, but simply anger, a conditioned mental event. In that moment of noticing, we have created a space. And in that space, we have a choice. This is where the parable of the two wolves becomes so powerful. An elder is teaching his grandchild, saying, "A fight is going on inside me. It is a terrible fight between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, and empathy." The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandchild thinks for a minute and then asks, which wolf will win? The elder simply replies, the one you feed. Right intention is the conscious act of choosing which wolf to feed. When the wolf of anger shows up, snarling and demanding attention, we do not have to give it our energy. We do not have to fight it, which would only make it stronger. We simply acknowledge its presence and then deliberately turn our attention to feeding the other wolf. We can consciously generate a thought of kindness. It may feel small and weak at first, a tiny whisper against the howl of anger, but we do it anyway. We feed it. We think of one small thing we are grateful for. We wish someone well. We remember a moment of peace. Each time we do this, we are strengthening the neural pathways of peace, of kindness, of non-harming. We are literally rewiring our brains. Over time, the wolf of peace grows stronger, and its voice becomes the new default. The howls of the other wolf become fainter, less compelling. It may never disappear entirely, but it no longer runs the show. This is the silent, moment-by-moment work of right intention. It is the heart's gentle but firm resolve to align itself with wisdom and compassion. It is the understanding that every great tree of right action, every beautiful flower of right speech, grows from the tiny, invisible seed of a pure intention. Without this internal work, our ethics become a hollow performance, our meditation becomes a mere escape, and our wisdom becomes dry, intellectual knowledge. Right intention is what gives the path its heart. It is the compass that ensures that no matter how winding the road or how dark the forest, every step we take is a step towards freedom, a step towards peace, a step towards home. It purifies the stream at its very source, so that everything that flows from it becomes clear and life-giving, ready to manifest in the world through the words we choose to speak. As the inner compass of our heart aligns with the true north of right intention, its magnetic pull begins to influence the world around us. The very first territory it transforms is the realm of our speech. Words are intention made audible. They are the breath of our inner world given form, a bridge that connects the private landscape of our mind with the shared reality of others. Every word we utter is a creative act, a force sent out into the world. It can be a balm that soothes a hidden wound, a light that illuminates a dark path, or a seed that blossoms into understanding and connection. But this same force, when misaligned, becomes a weapon. It can be a subtle poison that erodes trust, a sharp blade that severs relationships, or a bludgeon that crushes another's spirit. The practice of right speech, or samavacha, is therefore not a list of repressive rules or a vow of silence. It is the masterful, compassionate, and mindful art of wielding this immense power, of choosing to make our voice an instrument of healing and clarity in a world so often filled with noise and discord. Our words have a weight and a permanence that we often forget. They linger in the air long after they are spoken and take up residence in the minds of others for days, weeks, or even a lifetime. A single sentence of encouragement spoken to a child can shape their sense of self-worth for decades. A careless, critical remark can become a painful echo that replays itself during moments of vulnerability. In this sense, we are constantly shaping reality with our language. The practice of right speech begins with a profound respect for this power. It asks us to pause, even for a millisecond before we speak, and to become aware of the force we are about to unleash. It is the shift from unconscious talking to conscious communication. The Buddha, with his characteristic precision, outlined right speech in 4 main aspects. These are best understood not as rigid prohibitions, but as clear guideposts for navigating our communication with integrity and kindness. They are abstaining from false speech, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from harsh speech, and abstaining from idle chatter. Let us look at each one, not as a restriction, but as an invitation to a more peaceful and authentic way of being. The first guidepost is to abstain from false speech. This is the foundation of all meaningful communication. At its most basic level, it means not telling deliberate lies, but its roots go much deeper than that. It is a commitment to seeing and speaking the truth, to aligning our words with reality as best we can. This includes the subtle forms of falsehood that we so easily fall into. It is the exaggeration we use to make a story more impressive or to make ourselves seem more important. It is the so-called white lie told to avoid a moment of discomfort, which slowly chips away at the bedrock of trust. It is the promises we make with no real intention of keeping them. In our digital age, it is the carefully curated image of a perfect life we present online, a fabrication that can leave both ourselves and others feeling inadequate. To practice this aspect of right speech is to commit to a radical honesty. It is to value truth above social convenience or personal gain. When we speak truthfully, we build a world of reliability around us. Others learn that our word is our bond, and a deep sense of security can flourish in our relationships. This commitment to truthfulness is not a license to be brutally honest without regard for others' feelings. That would violate the other aspects of right speech. Rather, it is about having the courage to live in reality and to communicate from that place of authenticity and integrity. The second guidepost is to abstain from divisive speech. This is language that creates enmity and sets people against one another. It is the act of carrying tales, of hearing something negative about someone and repeating it to another, planting seeds of discord. It is slander, backbiting, and the spreading of rumors that damage a person's reputation. We see this poison at work everywhere in our modern world, from office politics that thrive on gossip to the polarized public discourse where groups are pitted against each other with hateful rhetoric. To practice this aspect of right speech is to make a conscious decision to become a force for harmony. It means that when you hear a negative story about someone, you allow it to stop with you. You become a dead end for gossip. You refuse to participate in conversations that tear people down. Instead, you actively look for opportunities to speak in a way that unites people, that highlights common ground, that fosters understanding. It is to ask, will these words bring people closer together or drive them further apart? By choosing the path of non-divisive speech, you become an oasis of peace in the social desert, a person around whom conflict tends to quiet down simply because you refuse to provide it with fuel. The third guidepost is to abstain from harsh speech. This is any word or tone intended to cause emotional pain. It is the obvious violence of yelling, cursing, and insults. But it is also the subtle violence of cutting sarcasm, of a condescending tone, of belittling remarks disguised as jokes. It is speech that comes from a place of anger, frustration, or arrogance. When we engage in harsh speech, we inflict a wound on the listener, but we also harm ourselves. We agitate our own minds, strengthening the very states of anger and aversion we seek to overcome. The practice of abstaining from harshness is the practice of cultivating gentleness. It is learning to communicate our needs, our disagreements, and even our disappointments with a quality of kindness. This is where the story of the monk and the scorpion provides a powerful illustration. A monk sees a scorpion drowning and reaches down to save it. As he lifts it, the scorpion stings him. The monk drops it, but seeing it still struggling, he tries to lift it again and is stung again. A bystander asks him, "Venerable sir, why do you keep trying to save that creature? It only stings you." The monk replies, "It is the scorpion's nature to sting, but it is my nature to save." Our practice is to maintain our nature, our intention of gentleness and compassion, even when we are met with the stings of the world. It is to use our words like a soft, nourishing rain rather than a battering hailstorm. The fourth and perhaps most challenging guidepost for our time is to abstain from idle chatter. This is speech that has no real purpose. It is aimless talk, pointless speculation, and conversation that simply fills silence with noise. It is the endless stream of gossip about celebrities, the rehashing of meaningless details, the chatter that dissipates our mental energy and leaves us feeling drained and unfocused. So much of our modern communication, especially on social media, falls into this category. We scroll and comment, we talk and text, often just out of habit, contributing to a constant hum of mental static. To practice abstaining from idle chatter does not mean we must become grimly serious and never engage in light conversation. Joyful and connecting talk is not idle chatter. The practice is to bring a quality of intention to our communication. Before speaking, we can engage in a silent, swift inquiry based on a filter proposed by the Buddha. Is what I am about to say true? Is it beneficial? Is it spoken with a kind heart? Is this the right time to say it? If a statement does not pass through these gates, perhaps it is better left unsaid. This practice helps us to value our words, to see our communicative energy as a precious resource, not to be squandered. When we practice these four abstentions, we are not just avoiding the negative, we are creating a space for the positive to arise. We begin to speak words that are truthful and trustworthy. We speak words that heal division and create harmony. We speak with a gentleness that soothes and comforts. We speak with a purpose that clarifies and uplifts. And in this, we discover the profound power of another form of right speech, noble silence. In a world that is terrified of silence, we learn to embrace it as a refuge and a source of wisdom. When we are overcome with anger, when we do not have the facts, or when words would only add to the confusion, silence is often the kindest and most intelligent response. It is not an empty, awkward silence, but a rich, present, and listening silence. It gives us the space to calm our own minds, and it creates a respectful space for others to truly be heard. Right speech, then, is the art of transforming our voice from an unconscious habit into a conscious tool of compassion and wisdom. It is the direct and immediate fruit of our internal cultivation, the first tangible gift we offer to the world from a heart that is aligned with peace. With our intentions clarified by right intention and our communication purified by right speech, the path now naturally leads us to examine how this inner integrity manifests in the full spectrum of our physical engagement with the world, through our deeds and actions. From the silent, internal sanctuary of right intention and through the expressive bridge of right speech, the path of awakening now moves into its most tangible and visible form, right action. This is where our practice meets the pavement. It is the full embodiment of our spiritual aspirations, the way our body and our deeds become a living testament to the clarity of our mind and the compassion of our heart. The Pali term sammakamanta refers to our work, our conduct, our activity in the world. This step, therefore, is about transforming the very way we operate, so that every action, from the smallest gesture to the most significant choice, becomes an expression of wisdom and integrity. It is one thing to cultivate peaceful thoughts in the quiet of meditation, or to speak kind words when we are feeling calm. But the true test of our practice is how we act when faced with the pressures, temptations, and provocations of the world. Right action is where the rubber meets the road. It is the forging of a life where there is no gap between our inner values and our outer conduct, creating a seamless whole of being that is the very source of a deep and unshakable peace. At its core, right action is about aligning our physical deeds with the insights of right view and the motivations of right intention. It is the conscious choice to act in ways that reduce suffering and create well-being for ourselves and for all those whose lives we touch. The Buddha, in his practical wisdom, outlined this principle through 3 fundamental precepts, which serve as foundational guides for ethical conduct. These are not rigid commandments handed down from on high to be followed out of fear. Rather, they are deep fields of inquiry and training, practices in non-harming that protect both ourselves and others. These 3 trainings are abstaining from taking life, abstaining from taking what is not given, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. Let us first explore the practice of abstaining from taking life. On its most immediate level, this is a clear and absolute commitment not to intentionally kill another human being. It is the recognition of the sanctity of life and the shared desire of every person to live and be free from harm. But the spirit of this precept extends far beyond this. It is the cultivation of a profound reverence for all life in all its forms. This naturally leads us to consider our relationship with the animal world. Without prescribing a specific diet, the practice invites a mindful inquiry. Does my consumption contribute to the suffering of other sentient beings? How can I move through the world in a way that honors the life around me? This practice fosters the quality of harmlessness, or avihisa, as a core principle. Furthermore, we can understand taking life in more subtle ways. It is possible to kill someone's spirit with relentless criticism, to crush their hope with cynicism, or to act with a kind of emotional violence that, while not physically lethal, is profoundly life-negating. The positive cultivation of this precept, then, is not just the avoidance of killing, but the active protection and nurturing of life. It is becoming a guardian, a caretaker, a force for flourishing. It is the gentle hand that relocates a spider outside instead of crushing it, and it is the supportive presence that encourages and affirms the life and potential in another person. The second training is to abstain from taking what is not given. At first glance, this simply means not stealing. We do not take another person's property. We do not engage in fraud. We do not cheat on our taxes. This is the basic foundation of a society built on trust and mutual respect. But again, the practice invites us to a much deeper self-reflection. The principle is about not taking anything that has not been offered freely. Are we taking credit for work that someone else has done? Are we taking advantage of a loophole to get more than our fair share? Are we taking up more than our allotted time in a shared conversation, effectively stealing the opportunity for others to speak? Are we taking someone's trust for granted? In a broader sense, are we as individuals and as a society taking more resources from the planet than can be sustainably replenished? The impulse to take what is not given stems from a mind of scarcity, a feeling that we are not enough and do not have enough. The antidote and the positive practice of this precept is the cultivation of generosity, or dana, and contentment. When we are content with what we have, the frantic urge to acquire more begins to subside. When we practice generosity, actively looking for opportunities to give of our time, our energy, or our resources, we shift our entire orientation from one of grasping to one of offering. We discover the profound joy that comes not from taking, but from giving freely. The third training is to abstain from sexual misconduct. It is vital to understand that this is not a puritanical rejection of sexuality. Buddhism does not view sex as inherently sinful or impure. Instead, this precept is about bringing mindfulness, kindness, and non-harming into this powerful and intimate area of our lives. Misconduct refers to any sexual expression that causes harm to oneself or to others. This includes any action that involves coercion, exploitation, or deceit. It means not using our sexuality to manipulate or control another person. It points to the harm caused by infidelity, which breaks the bonds of trust and causes deep emotional pain. It asks us to examine the intention behind our sexual energy. Are we acting out of a desire for genuine connection, mutual pleasure, and shared intimacy? Or are we acting out of a restless, objectifying craving, using another person's body simply to gratify a momentary urge? In our modern world, this practice is centered on the principles of enthusiastic consent, emotional honesty, and profound respect for the vulnerability of our partners. It is about treating others as whole beings, not as objects for our satisfaction. The positive cultivation here is reverence, intimacy, and the transformation of sexual energy from a source of potential suffering into a powerful expression of connection, love, and kindness. Living by these three precepts is a practical application of the law of karma, the principle of cause and effect. We choose not to harm, not to take, and not to exploit, not merely because we are told to, but because we understand that actions rooted in hatred, greed, and delusion will inevitably lead to suffering. And actions rooted in loving kindness, generosity, and wisdom will inevitably lead to peace and happiness, both for ourselves and for the world. This is not a system of divine reward and punishment, but a natural, psychological law. An act of anger agitates the mind of the actor. An act of generosity gladdens it. When our actions are wholesome, our conscience is clear, and we can lay our head on the pillow at night with a mind that is at ease. The transformative power of this principle is perhaps most grandly illustrated in the historical story of the Indian emperor Ashoka the Great. In the early part of his reign, Ashoka was a ruthless conqueror, driven by a desire for power and expansion. His actions were the epitome of wrong action, culminating in the horrific Kalinga War, where hundreds of thousands of people were killed, deported, or died from the after effects. But upon witnessing the field of slaughter, the immense suffering he had caused, Ashoka had a profound awakening. This was a moment of right view, seeing the terrible truth of his actions. This led to a complete revolution of his heart, a shift to right intention, away from conquest and towards compassion. This inner change then manifested in a radical transformation of his deeds. He renounced military conquest and dedicated his reign to peace. He erected pillars with edicts promoting ethical conduct, built hospitals for people and animals, established universities, and planted shade trees along roads for travelers. Ashoka's life is a powerful testament to the fact that no matter how unskillful our past actions may have been, a genuine change of heart can lead to a complete and beautiful reorientation of our life's conduct. Right action, therefore, is the practice of making our entire physical existence a ceremony of compassion and awareness. It is the weaving of our thoughts, words, and deeds into a single, seamless fabric of integrity. When we live this way, we are no longer at war with ourselves, trying to reconcile a private self with a public persona. We simply are who we are, and what we do is a natural outflow of that authentic being. This creates a foundation of self-respect and inner strength that is not dependent on the approval of others. With our conduct in the world now aligned with our deepest values, the path naturally invites us to examine the area where our actions have a sustained and significant impact, the way we spend our days earning a living. Having established a foundation of ethical integrity through our speech and our general actions, the path of awakening now turns its gentle yet illuminating light upon the area of our lives where we invest the majority of our time, energy, and talent, our livelihood. For most of us in the modern world, our work is more than just a means of survival. It is a primary source of our identity, our relationships, and our impact on the world. It is the channel through which our personal energy flows into the collective. Therefore, the ethical character of our work is not a footnote to our spiritual practice, it is a central chapter. The principle of right livelihood, or samājiva, addresses this directly. It asks a profound and sometimes uncomfortable question. Can the way we earn our living be a source of peace, meaning, and integrity, rather than a source of inner conflict, stress, and harm? It is the final and culminating practice in the threefold training of ethical conduct, or sila, integrating the principles of non-harming into the very fabric of our daily economic life. The guiding star of right livelihood is the same one that illuminates all of ethical conduct, the principle of non-harming, or avihisa. At its most fundamental level, it means to engage in a profession that does not, either directly or indirectly, cause harm to oneself or to other living beings. It is the commitment to ensure that the bread on our table has not been bought with the suffering of another. This principle acts as a clear and steady compass, helping us navigate the often confusing and morally complex landscape of the modern economy. In the time of the Buddha, this principle was outlined through a list of 5 specific trades to be avoided. While they come from an ancient context, their underlying wisdom remains strikingly relevant. These 5 are livelihoods based on dealing in weapons, dealing in living beings, dealing in meat, dealing in poisons, and dealing in intoxicants. Dealing in weapons is perhaps the most obvious. It is the act of profiting from conflict, violence, and the tools of destruction. Right livelihood means refusing to earn one's keep from the business of war and death. Dealing in living beings refers to human trafficking and slavery, but also to the trade of animals for the purpose of slaughter, profiting from the captivity and killing of other creatures. The next, dealing in meat, is a direct extension, referring to the work of a butcher or anyone directly involved in the process of turning a living being into a commodity for consumption. Dealing in poisons referred to substances intended to kill, but in a modern sense, we can see this as any work that knowingly pollutes our shared environment or creates products that are toxic to the health of the community. And finally, dealing in intoxicants meant profiting from substances like alcohol that cloud the mind and lead to heedlessness, a state directly opposed to the mindfulness we are trying to cultivate. In our time, this could easily be extended to industries that knowingly profit from addiction, whether it be gambling, nicotine, or even the intentionally addictive architecture of some digital technologies. In our complex, interconnected global economy, applying these principles requires a new level of nuance and deep reflection. Very few of us are presented with a clear-cut choice between being a poet or an arms dealer. The ethical lines are often blurred. A person might work in a bank that invests in fossil fuels, or in an advertising agency that creates desire and dissatisfaction, or for a clothing company that relies on exploited labor in a distant country. Right livelihood in the 21st century is therefore not about finding a perfectly pure job, which may be an impossibility. Rather, it is an invitation to a continuous and honest inquiry. It is the practice of bringing mindful, ethical awareness to the work we already do and to the choices we make for our future. It asks us to reflect. Does my company treat its employees with dignity and respect? Does it operate with honesty? What is the environmental impact of my industry? Does my work contribute to systemic inequality, or does it help to alleviate it? Does the product or service I offer genuinely help people, or does it prey on their insecurities and cravings? Let us consider a modern story. Anna is a brilliant software engineer. She landed a dream job at one of the world's largest social media companies, earning a salary that afforded her a beautiful apartment and a life of comfort and security. Her work was challenging, and she was good at it, designing algorithms that kept users engaged on the platform for longer and longer periods. But over time, a deep sense of unease began to grow within her. She read studies and saw in her own friends the rising levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness linked to the very products she was helping to build. She saw how the algorithms she fine-tuned were contributing to political polarization and the spread of misinformation. Her generous paycheck began to feel heavy, tainted by the subtle but widespread harm her work was causing. She was living a life of deep inner conflict. Her material success was profound, but her sense of integrity was eroding. After months of deliberation, she made a difficult choice. She resigned. She took a position with a small, struggling nonprofit organization that develops free mental health applications, tools to help people manage anxiety and practice mindfulness. Her salary was cut by more than half. She had to move to a smaller apartment. By every conventional measure of success, she had taken a significant step backward. And yet, she felt an incredible sense of relief, a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. Her work was no longer at war with her values. When she sat down at her computer each morning, she knew that her effort, her skill, and her energy were now aligned with her deepest intention, the intention to relieve suffering, not to cause it. Her livelihood had become right livelihood. She was no longer just making a living, she was living a life of meaning. Anna's story illustrates that right livelihood is not always the easy path, but it is the path to wholeness. It is not a judgment on any particular profession, but a call to personal responsibility. Not everyone can or should quit their job tomorrow. The practice can begin right where you are. It can be the courage to speak up in a meeting against a policy that is unfair. It can be the choice to manage your team with compassion and kindness, creating a small island of sanity within a larger corporation. It can be the refusal to cut corners or engage in dishonest practices, even if it is the company norm. It is the conscious shift in perspective from asking, "What can I get from this job?" to asking, "How can I serve through this job?" When our work becomes aligned with our practice, it ceases to be a separate, cordoned off part of our existence. It is no longer the thing we have to endure for 8 hours a day in order to finally live our real life in the evenings and on weekends. It becomes part of that real life. It becomes a primary field for the cultivation of patience, generosity, and wisdom. This integration resolves one of the most profound sources of anxiety in modern life, the feeling of being fragmented. Right livelihood is the path to becoming one person, a whole person, whose values are consistent whether at home, in the community, or in the workplace. With this, the training in ethical conduct, or sila, is complete. Through right speech, right action, and right livelihood, we have built a firm foundation of integrity. We have cleaned the garden of our life, removing the most overt weeds of harmful behavior. But to keep this garden clear and to cultivate the beautiful flowers of wisdom and compassion requires a focused and disciplined mind. A life of ethical integrity is difficult to maintain in a turbulent world if the mind itself is turbulent, easily swayed by the winds of greed, fear, and anger. Therefore, the path of awakening does not stop here. It now must turn inward to the direct and essential training of the mind itself. This brings us to the next great division of the path, the cultivation of mental discipline, or samadhi, which begins with the foundational practice of right effort. Having built the strong and stable foundation of ethical conduct, a life of integrity that protects us from the coarsest forms of suffering, the Eightfold Path now turns inward. It moves from the outer world of speech and action to the inner world of the mind itself. For while a life of integrity is a great refuge, it requires an inner strength to maintain amidst the world's pressures. A mind that is scattered, agitated, or weak will find it difficult to uphold the principles of right action and right livelihood when faced with fear, temptation, or greed. Therefore, the path now introduces the section on mental discipline, or samadhi, and the very first step, the engine that drives all internal development, is the principle of right effort. The word effort in our modern culture is often fraught with tension. It conjures images of striving, of struggle, of white-knuckled force, and a relentless push towards a goal. We are taught to hustle, to grind, to push through pain, often at the expense of our own well-being. The Buddhist understanding of effort, samavayama, is a radical and healing alternative to this view. The key, as always, is the word right. It is not about the quantity of effort, but about its quality. It is not about how hard you push, but about how skillfully you apply your energy. It is an effort that is balanced, intelligent, joyful, and sustainable. The most beautiful illustration of this principle is the story of Sona, a monk who was practicing with such ferocious, misguided intensity that he made himself sick and discouraged. He had been a wealthy young man, and his hands and feet were so delicate that when he practiced walking meditation, they bled, staining the path crimson. He thought to himself, "I am giving this my all, yet my mind is not liberated. Perhaps this path is not for me. I should return to my life of wealth and simply do good deeds." The Buddha, perceiving his thoughts, visited him and asked, "Sona, is it true that before When you were a layman, you were skilled at playing the lute? Sona replied that he was. The Buddha then asked, "And what would happen, Sona, if you tuned the strings of your lute too tightly?" "Venerable sir," Sona answered, "they would snap." "And what would happen if you left them too loose?" "They would not make a sound." The Buddha then delivered the crucial teaching. In the same way, Sona, energy that is stretched too tight leads to restlessness and agitation. Energy that is too slack leads to laziness and torpor. Therefore, Sona, tune the energy of your practice so that it is just right, balanced, and even, and you will find the way. This is the heart of right effort. It is the gentle art of persisting. It is learning to be the skillful musician of our own mind, knowing precisely how to tune the strings of our energy so they produce the beautiful music of awakening. This skillful application of energy is directed into 4 specific areas, often called the 4 great efforts. These 4 principles provide a comprehensive framework for mental cultivation for tending the garden of the mind. The first of these is the effort to prevent the arising of unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the practice of wise vigilance. It is like being the gentle but firm gatekeeper of your mind. Through mindfulness, we begin to learn what triggers our negativity. Perhaps we notice that scrolling through a certain social media feed reliably produces feelings of envy and inadequacy. The right effort here is not to scroll at all. It is the wisdom to proactively protect our peace by not inviting the thief into the house. Perhaps we know that engaging in heated political debates online always leaves us feeling angry and agitated for hours. The right effort is to restrain the impulse to type that first comment, to choose the well-being of our mind over the fleeting satisfaction of being right. This is not suppression, it is wisdom. It is recognizing which conditions are likely to give rise to mental weeds and skillfully choosing not to water them. It is the preventative medicine of the mind, the most efficient and painless form of practice. The second great effort is to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Despite our best efforts as gatekeepers, weeds will inevitably sprout in the garden. A thought of anger flashes in the mind. A wave of anxiety begins to build. A feeling of resentment takes hold. What do we do now? Our habitual tendency is either to indulge the state, getting lost in its story and feeding it with more thoughts, or to try and violently suppress it, pushing it down and pretending it isn't there. Both of these are unskillful. Right effort offers a middle path. The first step is to simply acknowledge the unwholesome state without judgment. Ah, there is anger. We see the weed clearly. The second step is to relax around it, to investigate it with a gentle curiosity. What does this anger feel like in my body? A tightness in the chest? Heat in the face? We observe it as an impersonal phenomenon, a collection of sensations, rather than getting swept away by the narrative of, "I am angry because." The third and most active step is to gently apply an antidote. If the mind is filled with ill will, we can intentionally bring to mind a person or a memory that evokes a feeling of love or gratitude. If the mind is contracting with greed, we can contemplate the impermanence of the object we desire, or reflect on the joy of generosity. We are not fighting the darkness, but simply turning on a light. By doing so, we rob the negative state of its fuel, and it will eventually wither and pass away on its own. This is the skillful uprooting of the weeds that have already grown. The third great effort turns from the negative to the positive. It is the effort to arouse wholesome states that have not yet arisen. Tending the garden of the mind is not just about pulling weeds, it is also about planting flowers. This is the joyful and creative aspect of the practice. Wholesome states are qualities like loving kindness, compassion, generosity, gratitude, patience, concentration, and joy. Right effort means we don't just wait for these states to appear by chance, we actively cultivate them. We can set aside a few moments each day to deliberately reflect on things we are grateful for. We can make a conscious choice to perform a small, unexpected act of kindness for someone. We can read texts that inspire us, or listen to music that uplifts the heart. We can practice meditations, like the development of loving kindness, that are specifically designed to water these wholesome seeds. This is the proactive choice, to beautify our inner world, to intentionally plant the seeds of happiness and peace. The fourth and final great effort is to maintain and perfect the wholesome states that have already arisen. When, through our practice, a flower begins to bloom, our work is not over. When a feeling of calm settles over us during meditation, or a genuine sense of compassion arises in our heart, the effort is now to nurture and sustain it. This is a delicate skill. It is not about grasping at the positive state with craving, thinking, "Oh, this is so nice. I hope it never leaves," as that very grasping will surely make it disappear. Instead, it is the effort of gentle encouragement. We recognize the wholesome state is present, and we create the conditions for it to continue. We might stay with our breath to stabilize a feeling of calm. We might follow through on an impulse of generosity to strengthen that quality. We learn to rest in these states, to savor them without clinging, allowing them to permeate our being. By doing this, we strengthen these positive neural pathways, making it more likely that these beautiful flowers will bloom again and again until they become the natural landscape of our mind. Right effort, therefore, is the wise, balanced, and compassionate art of being our own gardener, our own therapist, our own kind coach. It is the steady, patient, day-by-day practice of transforming the mind from a wild, untended thicket into a beautiful, flourishing sanctuary. It provides the gentle, persistent energy needed for the entire journey of awakening. But for a gardener to work effectively, to know which plants are weeds and which are flowers, they must be able to see the garden with clarity and precision. They must be aware of every part of it, in every moment. This skillful, balanced effort is therefore completely inseparable from a clear, non-judgmental, and present moment awareness. And this brings us to the very heart of the meditative path, the indispensable seventh factor, right mindfulness. With the wise and balanced energy of right effort established as the engine of our practice, we now arrive at the seventh step of the path, the very heart of Buddhist meditation and the cornerstone of awakening itself, right mindfulness. If right effort is the skillful hand of the gardener that knows when to plant and when to pull, right mindfulness, or samasati, is the gardener's clear and patient eye. It is the faculty of awareness that sees the garden of the mind just as it is, noticing every flower as it blooms and every weed as it sprouts, without judgment, without preference, and with a gentle, unwavering attention. In a world that pulls us in 1,000 different directions, a world of distraction and digital noise, the practice of mindfulness is a radical act of returning home to the present moment, the only place where life is ever truly happening. Mindfulness is often misunderstood. It is not about emptying the mind or stopping our thoughts, which is an impossible task that only leads to frustration. It is not about zoning out into a blissful trance, nor is it a complex intellectual analysis. Mindfulness is simpler and more profound than any of that. It is the quality of awareness that knows what is happening while it is happening without commentary. It is a clear, receptive, and non-judgmental presence with our moment-to-moment experience. Imagine your mind as a mirror. A mirror does not judge what it reflects. It does not cling to a beautiful image or try to push away an unpleasant one. It simply shows, with perfect clarity and impartiality, whatever is placed before it. This is the quality of mind we cultivate through mindfulness. It is the capacity to observe our own thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations as they arise and pass away without getting swept away by them. Our default state is one of mindlessness, of living on autopilot. We drive to work without remembering the journey. We eat a meal without truly tasting the food. We have conversations while our mind is rehearsing what we'll say next. In this state of autopilot, we are not free. We are run by our ingrained habits and conditioned reactions. An external event happens, and an old emotional program is triggered automatically. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and the anger flares instantly. We receive a critical email, and the anxiety immediately tightens our chest. There is no space, no freedom between the stimulus and the reaction. The power of mindfulness is that it creates that space. It introduces a sacred pause. In the moment that someone cuts us off in traffic, Mindfulness allows us to first feel the raw sensation of adrenaline in the body and to see the thought, I am angry, as just a thought. In that moment of clear seeing, a space opens up, and in that space, we have a choice. We are no longer a puppet of our conditioning. We can choose not to yell, we can choose to breathe. We can choose to respond with a measure of wisdom and calm rather than reacting with blind habit. This is the liberating power of mindfulness in every moment of our lives. To systematically train this faculty, the Buddha taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is a comprehensive map for exploring the entirety of our human experience with awareness. The first foundation is mindfulness of the body. This is the anchor for our practice, the starting point to which we can always return. We begin with the body because, unlike our thoughts, which roam freely through the past and future, our body is always, undeniably, in the present moment. The most common way to practice this is mindfulness of breathing. We simply rest our attention on the raw, physical sensations of the breath as it enters and leaves the body. The feeling of the air at the tip of the nostrils, the rising and falling of the abdomen. We are not trying to control the breath, only to feel it. When the mind wanders, as it inevitably will, we gently and kindly notice that it has wandered, and without any scolding, we guide it back to the breath. This simple act, repeated thousands of times, trains the mind in gentleness, patience, and concentration. This foundation also includes being aware of the body's posture, knowing when you are sitting, standing, walking, or lying down, and bringing awareness to routine activities, feeling the sensation of warm water on your hands as you wash the dishes, or the feeling of your feet on the ground as you walk to your car. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings, or more accurately, feeling tones. In the Buddhist sense, this refers to the raw quality of any experience before we label it with a complex emotion. Every moment of our experience has a feeling tone. It is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Before the full story of, I'm so angry at my boss, develops, there is simply a raw, unpleasant sensation in the body. Before the story of, I must have that new phone arises, there is a pleasant feeling associated with the thought of it. The practice here is to become aware of these raw feeling tones as they arise, without immediately reacting. When a pleasant feeling comes, we notice it without grasping or trying to prolong it. When an unpleasant feeling comes, we notice it without aversion or trying to push it away. This is a profound practice because it cuts off craving and aversion at their very root. By learning to sit with the raw energy of pleasantness and unpleasantness, we stop being controlled by our automatic need to chase pleasure and run from pain. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself, or consciousness. Here, we turn our awareness back onto the mind that is aware. We learn to recognize the changing states of our own mind as they occur. We simply note, the mind has desire, or the mind is distracted, or the mind is peaceful. We are not judging these states or identifying with them. We are observing them as if they were weather patterns passing through the sky. The sky does not become the cloud. In the same way, we are not our anger, or our sadness, or our joy. We are the spacious awareness that can know these states are present. This practice of disidentification is incredibly freeing. It allows us to hold our own emotional states with a light and compassionate touch, rather than being completely consumed by them. The fourth foundation is mindfulness of dhammas, or mental objects. This is the most panoramic of the four, where we learn to see our direct experience through the clarifying lens of the teachings themselves. When we feel a strong desire for something, we can mindfully recognize it not just as my desire, but as a direct experience of the hindrance of sensual desire. When we feel overwhelmed by worry, we can see it as the hindrance of restlessness. When we observe a thought or sensation arise, persist for a time, and then vanish, we are witnessing the universal truth of impermanence, or Anicca, in our own laboratory of experience. This is where mindfulness begins to blossom into insight, or vipassana. We are no longer just observing the contents of our mind, we are understanding the very nature of reality through them. While these foundations can be developed in formal sitting meditation, their true purpose is to be carried into every moment of our lives. The practice of mindfulness in daily life is what transforms our existence. It is eating your lunch and truly tasting each bite instead of scrolling through your phone. It is walking to the store and feeling the rhythm of your steps and the air on your skin. It is listening to a friend, giving them the full, spacious gift of your undivided attention instead of waiting for your turn to talk. The parable of the empty boat perfectly captures the essence of this practice. Imagine you are peacefully rowing a small boat across a misty lake. Suddenly, with a loud thump, another boat crashes into yours. Immediately, a surge of anger flares up. You turn, ready to shout at the idiot who wasn't looking where they were going. But as the mist clears, you see that the other boat is empty. It simply drifted loose from its mooring and floated into you. In that instant, all your anger vanishes. It is impossible to be angry at an empty boat. The story reveals a profound truth. The bump from the boat was never the source of your anger. The source of your anger was the story. You added the story of a someone, an aggressor who had wronged you. Mindfulness is the practice of learning to see the bump before we add the story. It helps us to see that the vast majority of life's irritations, the critical comment, the traffic jam, the spilled coffee air, all just empty boats. They are impersonal events, and it is our own reactive mind that adds the story and creates the suffering. Right mindfulness, then, is the luminous, beating heart of the path. It is the clear-eyed and kind awareness that makes all other factors of the path possible and effective. When this steady, present moment awareness is combined with a sustained and balanced energy of right effort, something remarkable begins to happen. The turbulent waters of the mind naturally begin to grow still. The frantic activity of thought begins to settle, like silt in a lake that has been left undisturbed. The mind becomes collected, unified, and calm. This natural fruit of the practice leads us to the final factor in the development of mental discipline, the profound state of right concentration. We have journeyed through the foundations of ethical living, which give us stability in the world, and we have explored the principles of right effort and right mindfulness, which cultivate a clear and resilient awareness. Now, we arrive at the eighth and final step of the Noble Eightfold Path, the beautiful and profound culmination of our mental training, right concentration, or sama samadhi. If right effort is the steady energy that propels us forward, and right mindfulness is the clear-eyed vision that guides our way, then right concentration is the destination of that immediate journey. It is the state of a mind that has come to rest, a mind that is no longer fragmented and scattered, but has become unified, collected, and deeply, unshakably calm. It is the natural fruit that grows from the sustained practice of the preceding steps. In our everyday lives, the mind is often like a restless monkey, swinging wildly from branch to branch. It leaps from a memory of the past, to a worry about the future, to a sensory distraction in the present, to an internal commentary, all within the space of a few seconds. This is the state of a scattered mind, a mind at the mercy of every internal and external stimulus. It is a state that consumes an enormous amount of energy and is the source of much of our mental fatigue and stress. Right concentration is the taming of this monkey mind. It is the development of the ability to place our attention on a single chosen object, such as the sensation of the breath, a visual image, or a feeling of loving kindness, and to have the attention remain there peacefully and willingly without being constantly pulled away. This is not a concentration born of force or tension. It is not the strained focus we use to solve a difficult math problem. It is a concentration born of release, of letting go of all other objects of attention and allowing the mind to rest, to settle, and to become whole. It is crucial to understand the intimate and synergistic relationship between mindfulness and concentration. They are two wings of the same bird. One cannot fly without the other. Let us imagine a lighthouse keeper on a dark and stormy night. Right mindfulness is the keeper's broad, panoramic awareness. The keeper is aware of everything: the sound of the crashing waves, the feeling of the cold wind, the cry of a distant bird, the state of their own mind. It is an open, spacious, and receptive quality of knowing. Right concentration, on the other hand, is the powerful, focused beam of light from the lighthouse lamp. The lighthouse keeper mindfulness directs that beam of light concentration to rest upon a single point, perhaps a ship navigating the dangerous waters. Mindfulness is the faculty that notices when the beam has drifted off its mark, distracted by a flash of lightning or a sudden noise. And it is mindfulness, with its gentle and non-judgmental quality, that skillfully guides the beam back to the ship. Concentration is the steadiness, the brightness, and the unwavering power of that beam itself. A practice with only mindfulness, but no concentration, would be weak and easily scattered. A practice with only concentration but no mindfulness could become a dull, unconscious trance. But together, they create a mind that is truly powerful, both brilliantly focused and spaciously aware. The benefits of cultivating right concentration are both immediate and profound. On the most immediate level, it is a powerful form of healing for the mind and body. In the deep states of calm that concentration brings, the relentless internal chatter that produces so much of our stress simply ceases. The mind, freed from its habitual burdens of worrying, planning, regretting, and judging, enters a state of profound rest. The production of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline is reduced, and the nervous system can reset and restore itself. This is a powerful antidote to the chronic anxiety and burnout that plague so much of modern life. It is a way of giving the mind a deep and nourishing vacation, allowing it to return to its natural state of balance and ease. This leads to an unparalleled clarity. The suggested image for right concentration is that of a lake filled with muddy water. Our ordinary, agitated mind is like this lake when it is stirred up by winds and currents. The mud of our thoughts, emotions, and anxieties is churned up, making the water completely opaque. We cannot see the bottom of the lake, nor can the surface clearly reflect the sky above. We live our lives trying to make decisions and see our way forward while looking through this murky water. The practice of concentration is the act of letting the wind die down, of allowing the water to become completely still. As the mind settles, the mud-incessant mental chatter slowly begins to sink to the bottom. The water becomes progressively clearer until finally it is crystal clear. In this state of profound stillness and clarity, we can see the bottom of the lake, and the surface perfectly reflects the trees, the clouds, and the vast sky, exactly as they are. This is the clarity of a concentrated mind. It is the ability to see our own experience and the world without the distortion of our own mental turmoil. But the ultimate purpose of right concentration within the Buddhist path is not simply to feel calm or to reduce stress, as wonderful as those benefits are. Its ultimate function is to create a stable and powerful platform for the arising of profound insight or vipassana. A scattered and agitated mind is incapable of deep seeing. It is like trying to perform delicate surgery in the midst of an earthquake. But a calm, stable, and unified mind is the most powerful scientific instrument in the universe. Once this state of deep concentration has been established, the mind can be directed to look deeply into the nature of reality itself. With this stable platform, we can turn our attention to the flux of our own experience and see, not as a philosophy, but as a direct, lived reality, the truth of impermanence. We can see the subtle nature of dissatisfaction, and we can penetrate the elusive and liberating truth of not self. Concentration provides the power, stability, and sharpness necessary for wisdom to cut through the deepest layers of ignorance. It is important, then, to understand that concentration is not an escape from life. While the states of deep concentration are often accompanied by feelings of bliss and profound joy, this bliss is not the goal. It is a healthy and pleasant side effect of a unified mind. The point is not to retreat from the world into a meditative bubble, but to develop a mind that is so stable, clear, and resilient that it can engage with the complexities and challenges of the world with greater wisdom and compassion. The clarity we find in the stillness is meant to be brought back into the marketplace, into our relationships, into every aspect of our lives. As the practice deepens, the experience of concentration becomes more refined. It begins with a sense of inner quiet. The constant noise of the inner dialogue begins to fade. As the mind settles further, a joyful feeling may arise, a happiness that is not dependent on any external cause, but is born from the mind's own peace. The body can feel light, and this joyful energy can seem to permeate every cell. This is not a mystical state, but simply the experience of the mind returning to its natural, unobstructed condition, free from its usual fetters. Right concentration, therefore, is the beautiful and powerful culmination of the path of mental discipline. It is the quiet, collected, and potent mind that is the natural result of living ethically, applying wise effort, and maintaining a steady, kind awareness. With this final step, our survey of the Noble Eightfold Path is complete. We have been given a comprehensive toolkit for human flourishing, a framework for seeing the world with wisdom, a guide for acting with integrity and compassion, and a method for cultivating a mind that is serene, strong, and clear. The path has shown us the way. Now, with these tools in hand, we are prepared to use them to look even more deeply into the fundamental laws of our existence, beginning with the most immediate, undeniable, and often challenging truth of our lives, the constant, pervasive, and universal reality of change. Having journeyed through the comprehensive and practical guidance of the Noble Eightfold Path, we have now arrived at a new phase of our exploration. We have cultivated the ethical foundation, the mental discipline, and the clear-seeing wisdom necessary to build a powerful and finely tuned instrument, the mindful and concentrated mind. Now, we begin to use this instrument not just to navigate our lives more skillfully, but to look directly into the fundamental nature of reality itself. We turn this clear lens of awareness upon our own experience and ask, what are the universal characteristics of this existence? The first, most immediate, and most undeniable truth that we encounter is the law of impermanence, or Anicca. This is not a grim or depressing doctrine, but a liberating truth that once fully understood and embraced can unlock a profound sense of peace, freedom, and an appreciation for the preciousness of life. It is the universal rhythm of existence, the very pulse of the cosmos. Impermanence is not a hidden or obscure law. It is written into the fabric of everything. We can see it operating on every scale, from the cosmic to the microscopic. On the grandest scale, we see the life cycles of stars, which are born in fiery nebulae, shine for billions of years, and eventually collapse into darkness. We see the slow, inexorable drift of continents, the rising of mountain ranges and their erosion into dust over eons. We see the rise and fall of great civilizations, languages, and cultures, each one seeming so permanent in its time, yet ultimately giving way to the next. The entire universe is a vast and ceaseless dance of arising and passing away. On a more human scale, this truth is our constant companion. We see it in the turning of the seasons, from the fresh green of spring to the stark silence of winter. We experience it directly in our own bodies, which grow from the utter dependence of infancy, through the vitality of youth, the maturity of adulthood, and into the inevitable decline of old age. Our relationships ebb and flow. Friends move away, love affairs begin and end, family dynamics shift. Our careers evolve, our homes change, our possessions break down and wear out. Nothing in our external world remains fixed. Everything is in a state of constant, unrelenting flux. But the most crucial and transformative place to observe impermanence is within the laboratory of our own direct, moment-to-moment experience. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes our guide. As we sit quietly and watch our own minds, we see that our inner world is a shimmering, ever-changing cascade of phenomena. A thought about work arises, and a moment later, it has vanished, replaced by a memory from childhood. A sound is heard, and then it is gone. An itch appears on our arm, we feel it, and then it subsides. A wave of happiness washes over us, warm and pleasant, and a few moments later, it is morphed into a neutral feeling, or perhaps a flicker of sadness. Our moods, our ideas, our perceptions, our very sense of who we are not solid entities. They are processes, constantly coming into being and ceasing to be. Our inner life is not a static object. It is a flowing river of transient events. Understanding this intellectually is one thing, but why is it so central to the path of liberation? Because the second noble truth taught us that the root of our suffering, our dukkha, is craving and clinging. And what do we cling to? We cling to things with the implicit assumption that they are permanent. Our suffering arises from the friction between our deep-seated desire for permanence and the fundamental reality of impermanence. We are constantly trying to build a solid house on shifting sands. Consider our relationship with pleasant experiences. We have a perfect day on vacation, a wonderful conversation with a friend, a moment of success at work. The experience itself is beautiful, but then the mind adds a new layer, clinging. A thought arises, this is so wonderful. I want this to last forever. I don't want this to end. In that moment of grasping, we plant the seed of future suffering because the vacation will end. The friend will leave, the success will fade. By clinging to the pleasant, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. We introduce attention and anxiety into the joyful moment itself, a subtle fear of its ending. The wisdom of impermanence teaches us to fully enjoy the warmth of the fire without trying to grab the flame. The same dynamic applies to our aversion to unpleasant experiences. When we experience physical pain, emotional grief, or a difficult life situation, our immediate reaction is resistance. We think, I want this to go away. I can't stand this. We fight against the reality of what is already present. This mental resistance, this war against the unpleasant, is a second arrow that we shoot into ourselves. The initial pain is the first arrow, but our desperate struggle against it, our wish for it to be otherwise, is the second and often more painful arrow. By fighting the fluid nature of reality, we exhaust ourselves and deepen our own suffering. When we first encounter this teaching, it can seem pessimistic, but a deeper contemplation reveals that embracing impermanence is the secret to a life of profound joy and meaning. When we truly understand that every moment is fleeting and unrepeatable, that moment becomes infinitely precious. Think of watching a cherry blossom festival. The delicate pink flowers are so breathtakingly beautiful, in large part because we know they will be gone in a week or two, scattered by the wind and rain. If they lasted all year round, we would soon take them for granted and walk past without a second glance. The knowledge of their impermanence is what makes us stop, pay attention, and appreciate their fragile beauty. So it is with all of life. Knowing that this conversation, this shared meal, this simple act of breathing will never happen again in exactly the same way, we are invited to be fully present for it. We learn to love more deeply, to listen more carefully, and to appreciate more fully, not in spite of the fact that nothing lasts, but because of it. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." This perfectly captures the essence of Anicca. Life is not a series of static snapshots, but a constantly flowing process. To embrace impermanence is to learn to dance with this river, to move with its currents, rather than building a dam in a futile attempt to stop its flow. Furthermore, the law of impermanence is a source of immense hope and solace during difficult times. When we are in the grip of deep grief, intense anxiety, or chronic pain, our suffering can feel solid, permanent, and all-encompassing. It can feel like we will be trapped in that dark place forever. The wisdom of impermanence is a gentle, comforting voice that whispers, "This too shall pass. No storm lasts forever. No night is eternal. The heavy clouds of depression will eventually part. The sharpest pangs of grief will soften with time. The physical pain will change its nature or subside." This knowledge does not magically erase the pain of the present moment, but it provides us with the resilience and courage to endure it. It reminds us that our current state is not our final destination. It gives us the strength to hold on, knowing that change is the most reliable law of the universe. To see impermanence, then, is to see the truth. It is to let go of our childish demand that life conform to our wishes, and to instead embrace life on its own terms, with grace and wisdom. It is to understand that security is not found in clinging to things, people or states of mind, but in our ability to adapt, to let go, and to flow with the natural unfolding of existence. By observing the ceaseless change in everything around us and everything within us, a profound question naturally begins to surface. If my body is constantly changing, my feelings are a fleeting parade, and my thoughts are like clouds passing in the sky, then who or what is this I that I have always taken to be so solid and real? If everything is in flux, where is the permanent, unchanging self? This deep personal investigation into the fluid and transient nature of our own being leads us directly to the next great mark of existence, and one of the most liberating and challenging teachings of the Buddha, the truth of not, self, or anatta. We have stood at the edge of the great, flowing river of existence and have come to see, with the clarity of our own awareness, the profound truth of impermanence. We have witnessed how everything, from the galaxies in deep space to the thoughts and feelings within our own minds, is in a constant state of arising and passing away. This insight naturally leads us to a question that lies at the very heart of the human condition. If everything is constantly changing, then who or what is this I that experiences the change? What is this self that I feel to be so solid, so central, so real? The investigation into this question leads us to the most distinctive, most challenging, and ultimately most liberating teaching of the Buddha, the truth of not self, or anatta. It is important to approach this teaching with care and gentleness. The idea of not self can sound frightening, nihilistic, or like a denial of our very existence. But this is a misunderstanding. The teaching of anatta is not a philosophical statement that you do not exist. You are clearly here, reading these words, thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings. Instead, it is an invitation to investigate the nature of your existence. It suggests that the way we perceive ourselves to exist as a permanent, separate, independent entity, a little me sitting in the control tower of the mind, pulling the levers of the body eyes, a profound illusion. And it is this illusion, this case of mistaken identity, that is the deepest root of our anxiety, our fear, and our suffering. Seeing through this illusion is the key that unlocks the door to profound freedom. Let us begin this investigation together. Take a moment and try to find this self. Where is it? Is it your body? If you point to your arm, that is a part of your body, but it is not your entire self. Furthermore, your body is in a constant state of flux. The cells you were born with are long gone, replaced many times over. The body you have today is different from the one you had 7 years ago, and different from the one you will have in 7 years. The body is a process, not a static thing, so the self cannot be the body. Is the self then your mind? But what is the mind? Is it your thoughts? Your thoughts are an endless parade, appearing and disappearing in an instant. A thought is not a thing, but an event. Is the self your emotions? Your emotions are even more fickle than your thoughts, shifting from joy to sadness to boredom in the course of a single hour. So the self cannot be your emotions. Is it your name? Your name is just a label, a convention agreed upon by society. Is it your memories? Your memories are unreliable and incomplete, constantly being rewritten. When we search for a solid, unchanging, independent CEO of our being, we cannot find one. We find only a collection of ever-changing processes. The Buddha, with his genius for analysis, deconstructed what we call a person into 5 distinct but interconnected processes. These are known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. He taught that what we call a self is simply a convenient name for the coming together of these 5 streams of activity. The first is the aggregate of form. This is our physical body, the material world of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch. As we have seen, this is clearly impermanent. The second is the aggregate of feeling. This is the raw, sensational tone of experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This too is in constant flux. The third is perception. This is the mental faculty that recognizes and labels experience. It identifies a shape as a tree, a sound as music, or a feeling as sadness. This labeling process is also a fleeting conditioned event. The fourth is mental formations. This is a vast category that includes all of our habits, biases, opinions, beliefs, desires, intentions, and psychological tendencies. These are the patterns of our mind, all of which are learned, conditioned, and subject to change. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the raw faculty of awareness itself, which arises when a sense organ meets a sense object. Eye consciousness arises when the eye meets a form. Ear consciousness arises when the ear meets a sound. It is not a monolithic, unchanging soul, but a flickering process, arising and ceasing moment by moment by moment. When we see that what we call a person is simply the dynamic interplay of these five changing processes, we realize there is no separate entity standing behind them, owning or directing them. The self is not a noun, it is a verb. It is the process of these five aggregates coming together moment by moment. The most famous illustration of this teaching is found in the story of the Buddhist monk Nagasena and the Greek king Melinda. The king, a sharp intellectual, asks the monk his name. The monk replies that he is known as Nagasena, but that this is merely a designation, as there is no permanent person to be found. The king is baffled and challenges him. He asks, "If there is no person, then who is it that wears these robes and eats this food?" Nagasena then asks the king how he arrived. "By chariot," the king replies. Nagasena, with calm precision, begins to deconstruct the chariot. "Your Majesty, is the chariot the wheels?" The king says no. "Is it the axle, the frame, the reins, the yoke?" The king answers no to each question. "Is the chariot, then, all of these parts combined?" "No, Venerable Sir." "Is the chariot something separate from all these parts?" "Number," Nagasena then declares. "Then, Your Majesty, I cannot see what this chariot is. Chariot is just a sound, a name. In ultimate reality, there is no chariot." The king, impressed, agrees that chariot is simply a convenient name he gives to the collection of parts when they are assembled in a certain way. Nagasena then delivers the final insight. Just as chariot is a designation for the assembled parts, so Nagasena is a designation for the five aggregates when they are assembled in this way. In ultimate reality, there is no permanent person to be found. And seeing this is not an intellectual game. It is the key to unraveling our deepest suffering. Almost all of our human distress comes from the project of protecting, defending, and enhancing this illusory self. We feel pride when I am praised. We feel hurt when my opinion is challenged. We feel anxiety about the future because I might fail. We feel jealousy when someone has something that I want. We cling desperately to possessions and people because they are mine. The entire drama of our lives revolves around this fictional main character. But when we see, through our own investigation, that this solid self cannot be found, the entire structure of our suffering begins to crumble. Who is it that is being insulted? What is there to defend? If there is no solid target, the arrows of the world have nowhere to land. This insight even touches our deepest existential fear, the fear of death. Much of our terror of dying is the fear that this I will be annihilated. But if we realize that this solid, separate self never really existed in the first place, that we have always been a flowing, changing process, then what is there to be annihilated? Death is then seen not as the extinguishing of a soul, but as a profound and natural transformation of that process. The river of our being flows into the great ocean. The fear loses its venomous sting. The most beautiful fruit of understanding, Anatta, is the spontaneous arising of compassion. As long as we are trapped within the prison of a separate self, our primary concern is always me and mine. The world is divided into self and other, and our main job is to benefit the self, often at the expense of the other. But when the walls of that prison begin to dissolve, we see that the division was never real. We are not separate from the world. We are a part of it. We are deeply and fundamentally interconnected. Your joy is my joy. Your suffering is my suffering. The boundary between us is a conceptual one, not an absolute reality. From this spacious understanding, a boundless, unconditional love and compassion naturally flow forth. The heart, no longer preoccupied with defending its tiny, imaginary territory, is free to open to the entirety of life. It is free to love. This is the ultimate freedom of not self. It is not an annihilation, but an expansion into everything, and it is the fertile ground from which we can now learn to consciously cultivate the boundless heart of loving kindness. As we stand on the liberating ground of not self, Anatta, having seen through the illusion of a solid, separate me, a remarkable and beautiful thing begins to happen. When the hard, defensive shell of the ego begins to crack and dissolve, we do not find a cold, empty void underneath. Instead, we discover what was there all along, obscured by our fear and delusion, a soft, open, and naturally connected heart. The deconstruction of the self is not an end in itself. It is the preparation of the soil. And into this fertile, open-hearted ground, we can now consciously plant the most beautiful seeds. The first and most foundational of these is the practice of metta, or boundless loving kindness. Metta is a Pali word that is often translated as loving kindness, but its meaning is deeper and more expansive than that. It is not the conditional, transactional, and often possessive love that we typically experience in our daily lives. It is not a love that says, "I will love you if you meet my needs," or "I love you because you are mine." Metta is a universal, unconditional, and radiant goodwill. It is the simple, heartfelt, and unwavering wish for all beings to be happy and free from the causes of suffering. It is like the sun, which shines its warmth down on everything without discrimination, on the beautiful flower and the thorny weed, on the saint and the sinner, on the friend and the foe. Metta is not an emotion we wait to receive from others. It is a quality of heart that we can deliberately cultivate within ourselves. It is a trainable skill, a form of mental and emotional fitness that can transform our inner world and our relationship to all of life. The practice of cultivating metta, known as metta bhavana, is a systematic and gentle method for opening the heart. It typically unfolds in 5 stages, moving in ever-widening circles of benevolence, like ripples expanding from a stone dropped into a still pond. The first stage, and for many the most challenging, is the offering of loving kindness to oneself. This is the essential starting point, for we cannot offer water to others from a well that is dry. So many of us live with a harsh inner critic, a relentless voice of self-judgment and disapproval. We find it far easier to offer kindness to others than to ourselves. The practice of metta asks us to gently put down this weapon of self-criticism and to offer ourselves the same grace and warmth we would offer a beloved friend. The practice is simple. Finding a comfortable posture, we can gently close our eyes and bring our awareness inward. Then, we silently repeat a few simple, powerful phrases, directing them to our own heart. The traditional phrases are, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease." We repeat these phrases slowly, allowing their intention to settle in our being. We are not trying to force a feeling, but simply to offer the intention. At first, it may feel awkward, or feelings of unworthiness may arise. This is perfectly normal. The practice is to meet even that resistance with the same gentle, loving awareness. We simply continue, patiently and kindly, offering ourselves this fundamental wish for well-being. This is the foundation upon which all further love can be built. Once we have established some measure of warmth and kindness for ourselves, we move to the second stage, extending metta to a respected benefactor or a dear friend. We bring to mind a person for whom we feel natural gratitude and affection, a teacher, a mentor, a close friend, or a family member. We visualize them clearly, holding their image in our heart, and we extend the same wishes to them that we offered ourselves. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. This stage is usually much easier, as the feelings of warmth flow more naturally. We allow the positive feelings to grow, to fill our heart and mind. This helps to amplify the quality of metta, making it stronger and more stable. The third stage is where the training begins to stretch our capacity for love. We bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone we see in our daily life, but for whom we have no strong feelings, either positive or negative. It could be the cashier at the grocery store, the mail carrier, or someone we pass on our commute. We often move through our lives seeing such people not as full human beings, but as mere functions. This practice invites us to see them differently. We bring their face to mind, and we recognize their fundamental humanity. Just like me, this person wishes to be happy. Just like me, this person wishes to be free from suffering. Recognizing this shared basic aspiration, we then extend the phrases of metta to them with sincerity. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. This stage is a powerful antidote to the indifference and anonymity of modern life. It helps to break down the artificial walls we build between ourselves and strangers, fostering a sense of quiet kinship with those around us. The fourth stage is the most challenging, and in many ways, the most transformative. Here, we extend loving kindness to a difficult person. This is someone with whom we have conflict, friction, or resentment. It is crucial to start with someone only mildly difficult, not the person who has caused us the deepest harm. We bring this person to mind, and we acknowledge the difficult feelings that arise. The practice is not to condone their harmful actions or to force ourselves to like them. It is a profound recognition that their unskillful actions almost certainly spring from their own deep pain and delusion. For the sake of our own freedom, we make the courageous choice not to carry the poison of hatred in our own heart. We understand that holding on to anger only harms ourselves, and so, with as much sincerity as we can muster, we offer them the phrases, "May you be happy. May you be free from your suffering." This act can be profoundly liberating. It is not about them. It is about us. It is about freeing our own heart from the prison of resentment. Finally, in the fifth stage, we break down all barriers completely. Having cultivated this feeling of loving kindness through these specific stages, we now allow it to become boundless. We radiate this feeling of warm, benevolent energy in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the left, and to the right, above and below. We extend it to all beings, without exception, all friends, all neutral people, all difficult people. We extend it to all humans on the planet, to all animals, to all insects, to all beings in all realms of existence, visible and invisible. We hold the entire world in our heart and offer the simple, powerful wish, may all beings everywhere be happy, may all beings be safe, may all beings be healthy, may all beings live with ease. In this stage, the heart transcends all boundaries of self and other, and we touch a state of universal, unconditional love. This practice of metta is not a weak or sentimental exercise. It is a source of immense strength and courage. The Buddha's own life provides a powerful illustration. A jealous cousin, Devadatta, attempted to assassinate the Buddha by releasing a notoriously fierce, intoxicated elephant named Nalagiri to charge at him in a narrow street. As the massive, enraged animal thundered towards him, the Buddha's disciples fled in terror. But the Buddha stood his ground, calm and fearless. Instead of using any form of force or psychic power, he simply radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta towards the charging elephant. The elephant, who had only ever known fear and violence, was suddenly enveloped in this unprecedented feeling of safety, goodwill, and unconditional love. Its rage subsided, its pace slowed. It approached the Buddha, knelt before him, and was completely tamed. This story demonstrates that metta is not a passive feeling, but a powerful, transformative energy capable of disarming even the greatest hostility and fear. By practicing metta, we are rewiring our brains for happiness, connection, and peace. We are choosing again and again to feed the wolf of love. It is the heart's response to the insight of not self. If we are all interconnected, then your happiness is my happiness. But while metta is the profound wish for all beings to find happiness, what is the heart's response when it is confronted not with the abstract need for happiness, but with the raw, immediate, an undeniable reality of pain and suffering? For this, we need another, equally important quality of the heart. This leads us directly to the exploration of Metta's twin sister, the profound virtue of compassion, or karuna. From the spacious, open ground of a heart cultivated in loving kindness, a heart that wishes happiness for all beings, we now turn to face an undeniable truth of our existence. While we wish for all to be well, the reality is that life is filled with suffering. Beings are not always happy. There is sickness, loss, disappointment, and pain. The practice of metta gives our heart its radiant warmth. But what happens when that warm sunlight falls upon a place of woundedness? The light does not turn away. It does not ignore the pain. Instead, its quality transforms. It becomes the focused, engaged, and tender energy of compassion, or karuna. If metta is the broad wish, may all beings be happy, karuna is the heart's immediate and trembling response to the fact that they are not. It is the quivering of the heart in the face of suffering, coupled with the active, sincere wish for that suffering to cease. It is helpful to understand the subtle difference between loving kindness and compassion. Metta is like a loving mother's general, ambient wish for her child's lifelong well-being and happiness. It is a state of benevolent goodwill, offered freely and universally. Karuna, on the other hand, is that same mother's immediate, focused, and active response when her child falls and skins their knee. Her entire being narrows in on the child's pain, and her every action is motivated by the single desire to soothe the hurt and end the crying. Compassion is metta in action, mobilized by the presence of pain. It is the willingness to be present with suffering, to not turn away from it, either in ourselves or in others. In the Buddhist teachings, every wholesome quality has what is called a near enemy, a state of mind that looks similar but is subtly corrupted. The near enemy of compassion is pity. Pity maintains a sense of separation. It looks down from above, thinking, "Oh, you poor, unfortunate thing." It reinforces the idea of a superior I who is observing an inferior other's suffering. True compassion, karuna, does the opposite. It dissolves separation. It meets the other at eye level, recognizing our shared vulnerability and our common humanity. It says, "Not I feel sorry for you, but I am with you in this. I understand this pain as a human experience." The far enemy of compassion, of course, is cruelty, the active wish to cause harm. Our practice, then, is to cultivate a heart that can remain open and tender in the face of pain, avoiding both the indifference of turning away, the superiority of pity, and the poison of cruelty. One of the most powerful and necessary applications of compassion is in the domain of forgiveness. This is where we are asked to apply karuna to the most difficult and painful wounds of our lives, especially those inflicted by others. Forgiveness is a deeply misunderstood concept. It is essential to be clear about what it is not. Forgiveness is not condoning harmful behavior. It is not saying what you did was okay. It is not pretending the hurt didn't happen. It is not necessarily forgetting the past, and it does not always mean you must reconcile with the person who harmed you or allow them back into your life. To do so may be unskillful and unsafe. Forgiveness, in its essence, is a profound and personal act of internal liberation. It is something we do for ourselves. Holding on to anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge is like grasping a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. We may wish for the other person to be burned, but in the meantime, we are the one whose hand is being seared. The bitterness, the endless replaying of past hurts, the righteous indignation, these are poisons that corrode our own peace of mind and steal our energy from the present moment. Forgiveness is the wise, courageous, and compassionate act of opening our hand and simply dropping the hot coal. It is the choice to cut the energetic cord of suffering that binds us to the person and the event that caused us pain. It is the reclaiming of our own heart, a declaration that we will no longer allow a past event to dictate our present happiness. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illustrates this. Two monks were on a long pilgrimage. They came to a river with a swift current, where a young woman, in a beautiful silk kimono stood, afraid to cross for fear of ruining her clothes. The older of the two monks, seeing her distress, walked over, hoisted her onto his back, carried her across the churning river, and gently set her down on the other side. He then continued his journey. The younger monk was utterly scandalized. He had taken strict vows never to touch a woman, and he was appalled by his companion's breach of the rules. He said nothing, but for the next several hours, he walked in furious silence, his mind replaying the scene over and over, consumed by judgment and anger. Finally, late in the afternoon, he could bear it no longer. He burst out, "How could you do that? You know we are forbidden by our vows to touch a woman. How could you so brazenly break the rules?" The older monk looked at him, his eyes calm and his face gentle. He smiled softly and said, "Brother, I left that woman back at the riverbank this morning. Are you still carrying her?" This story beautifully reveals the nature of our own burdens. The event is over, the harm is in the past. But like the younger monk, we choose to keep carrying it, allowing its weight to sour our present and poison our future. Forgiveness is the act of leaving the woman at the riverbank. It is the choice to stop carrying the weight of the past. The practice of forgiveness, like compassion, can be cultivated. It begins with acknowledging the reality of the pain. We allow ourselves to feel the hurt fully without minimizing it. We honor our own experience. Then, we can reflect on the heavy cost of not forgiving the endless mental loops, the physical tension, the emotional bitterness. We see clearly that the prison of resentment is one we build for ourselves. With that understanding, we can form a conscious intention to let go for our own sake. This can be a silent, meditative practice, where we bring the person to mind and silently say, "I have been carrying this burden of anger for too long. For the sake of my own peace, I choose to let it go. I release you. I forgive you." We may have to do this many times, but each time we loosen the knot a little more. Perhaps the most difficult forgiveness of all is the forgiveness we must offer to ourselves. We are all haunted by our own past mistakes, the times we acted unskillfully, the harm we caused through our own ignorance, fear, or pain. We can be our own harshest judge. The practice of self-forgiveness is much the same. We must acknowledge the harm we caused, taking responsibility without getting trapped in a spiral of shame. We can look with compassion at the person we were when we made that mistake. What were we feeling? What ignorance or pain was driving us? We learn to see our past self not as a villain, but as a suffering being who acted unskillfully. And we offer that past self the same compassion we would offer a friend. We can say to ourselves, "I acknowledge the harm I caused. I have learned from this. I forgive myself." This act of self-compassion is what allows us to integrate our past and move forward, not as a perfect being, but as a whole one, capable of learning and growing. Compassion and forgiveness, then, are the sacred arts of healing the heart. They are not signs of weakness, but of incredible courage and inner strength. They allow us to meet the inevitable suffering of the world, both the pain we receive and the pain we cause, with a wise, resilient, and open heart. With a heart that has learned to radiate loving kindness and to meet pain with compassion, we are now fully equipped. We have developed the internal tools of wisdom and love. The next step in our journey is to see how these ancient and powerful tools can be applied with precision and skill to the unique and often bewildering challenges of our modern lives, starting with the ubiquitous, chaotic, and ever-present realm of our digital world. Having cultivated a heart of boundless loving kindness and a spirit of deep compassion, we are now equipped with the inner resources to engage with the world from a place of profound stability and grace. The path of awakening is not about retreating from the complexities of life, but about learning to walk through them with wisdom. And there is perhaps no domain more complex, more pervasive, and more challenging to our peace of mind than the digital world. The internet, our smartphones, and social media are not inherently good or evil. They are powerful, neutral tools. But like any powerful tool, they can be used to build and connect, or they can be used to distract and destroy. For many of us, our digital lives have become a primary source of our anxiety, our envy, our anger, and our dissatisfaction. The practice, then, is not to renounce this world, but to learn to navigate it consciously, bringing the ancient wisdom of the path to the flickering screen in our hands. The architecture of our digital world, particularly social media, is almost perfectly designed to amplify the root causes of suffering, or dukkha. It is a powerful engine for generating craving and aversion. First, consider how it fuels craving, or tanha. We open an app and are immediately presented with a curated gallery of human experience, a highlight reel of everyone else's lives. We see perfectly composed photos of exotic vacations, blissful romantic relationships, stunning homes, and remarkable career achievements. The immediate subconscious reaction in our own mind is often a feeling of lack, a painful sense of comparison. A thought arises, my life is not that exciting. I am not that successful. I am not enough. This is the very essence of craving the painful gap between what is and what we think we need in order to be happy. The endless scroll itself is a form of craving, a relentless search for the next hit of dopamine, the next interesting article, the next amusing video, the next piece of validation. We are like ghosts, restlessly seeking a satisfaction that the digital world promises but can never truly deliver. At the same time, this world is a furnace for aversion, for anger, fear, and ill will. The algorithms that govern what we see are often designed to promote content that is inflammatory and divisive, simply because it generates the highest levels of engagement. We are bombarded with political outrage, stories of injustice, and comment sections filled with vitriol and hatred. We find ourselves drawn into pointless, emotionally draining arguments with complete strangers, defending our ego and solidifying our own biases. We feel a surge of anger at one post, a wave of fear at another, a sense of disgust at a third. We spend hours marinating in these negative mind states, strengthening the very habits of aversion that we have been working so hard to release. We become addicted to the outrage, and our peace of mind is the price we pay. The key to transforming our relationship with this powerful force is the practice of digital mindfulness. It is the application of clear, non-judgmental awareness to our technological habits. It begins with a simple but profound practice, the mindful pickup. Before you reach for your phone, before your thumb unlocks the screen, just pause. Take one conscious breath, and in that brief pause, ask yourself with genuine curiosity, what is my intention right now? Why am I picking up this device? Am I feeling bored, lonely, anxious? Am I seeking a specific piece of information? Or am I simply seeking a distraction from this present moment? You do not need to judge the answer. The goal is simply to see it. This single, simple act breaks the chain of mindless, compulsive checking and reintroduces intention into the equation. The practice continues with the mindful scroll. As you move through your feeds, try to maintain a light background awareness of your inner state. Notice how your body and mind react to what you see. When you see a post from a friend on a beautiful beach, notice if a subtle pang of envy arises. Just note it. Ah, envy. When you read a headline that makes your blood boil, notice the feeling of anger in your body, the tightness in your jaw, the heat in your chest. Just note it. Ah, anger. Notice the feeling of mental fatigue or boredom, and the almost automatic impulse to keep scrolling faster, searching for something, anything, to catch your interest. You are not trying to change what you feel. You are simply becoming the calm observer of the effects the digital world is having on your inner world. This awareness itself begins to rob these reactive states of their power. This leads naturally to the application of right speech to our online interactions. The anonymity of the internet can bring out the worst in us, but the law of karma, of cause and effect, is the same whether we are speaking to someone's face or typing on a screen. Before you post a comment or share an article, you can apply the filter of right speech. Is this true? Am I certain this information is accurate? Or am I spreading a rumor? Is this kind? Or will my words cause pain to the person reading them? Is this beneficial? Will this comment contribute to understanding and harmony? Or will it simply add more noise and division? Is this necessary? Does the world really need this opinion from me right now? By simply running our digital communication through this filter, we can transform our online presence from one that adds to the world's toxicity to one that contributes in a small but meaningful way to its sanity. Consider the story of Mark, a man who felt perpetually drained and on edge, his attention shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces by the constant demands of his digital life. He decided to try an experiment, a 1-week digital detox. For 7 days, he would use his phone only for essential calls. No social media, no news feeds, no endless browse. The first 2 days were agonizing. He felt a constant, twitchy urge to check his pocket. He felt phantom vibrations. The silence and lack of stimulation were not peaceful, but deeply uncomfortable. He was forced to confront the very feelings of boredom and anxiety from which his phone had been a constant refuge. But around the 3rd day, something began to shift. Without the constant distraction, he started to notice the world again. He tasted his morning coffee with a richness he hadn't experienced in years. He heard the sound of birds outside his window. When his daughter told him about her day, he listened with his full attention, not half listening while scrolling through emails. His mind, starved of its usual diet of digital junk food, began to feel calmer, clearer, and more spacious. By the end of the week, he felt a profound sense of freedom. He had read a book, he had gone for long walks, he had reconnected with his own thoughts. When the week was over, he did not throw his phone away. Instead, he re-engaged with it like a craftsman picking up a powerful tool, not like an addict reaching for a fix. He deleted the apps that caused him the most anxiety. He set firm boundaries for his usage. He had learned, through a short period of abstinence, how to have a conscious relationship with technology. This leads to the final, crucial practice, creating periods of digital silence. This is not a punishment, but a profound gift to your nervous system and your soul. It could be the first hour of every morning before the world has a chance to flood your mind. It could be a commitment to tech-free meals, allowing for genuine human connection. It could be a full day on the weekend, a digital Sabbath, where you allow your mind to rest and reset. These periods of silence are like letting the muddy waters of the mind settle. In the stillness, our capacity for deep thought, for creativity, for self-reflection, and for genuine presence with our loved ones is restored. The digital world, then, is a powerful mirror. It reflects back to us the state of our own mind. If we engage with it mindlessly, it will amplify our restlessness and our suffering. But if we engage with it consciously, bringing the ancient and timeless tools of mindfulness, intention, right speech, and compassion to the screen, we can transform this relationship. We can change it from a source of anxiety and division into a potential tool for wisdom, connection, and growth. This practice of applying our inner cultivation to a specific, challenging arena of modern life is a vital skill. And there is another arena where many of us face similar challenges of stress, ego, difficult relationships, and the search for meaning, the workplace. Having explored how to bring the clarity of ancient wisdom to the modern complexities of our digital lives, we now turn our attention to another arena that occupies a vast portion of our time and energy and is often the primary source of our stress, the workplace. For many of us, our professional life is a landscape of looming deadlines, competing ambitions, difficult personalities, and the relentless pressure to perform. It can feel like a battlefield where our peace of mind is the first casualty. But the path of awakening does not ask us to retreat from these challenges. Instead, it offers us a profound invitation to transform the workplace from a source of suffering into a field of practice. It shows us how our desk, our workshop, our classroom, or our clinic can become a modern-day monastery, a place where we can cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom in the very midst of our daily lives. The goal is not to simply survive our work, but to find a way to make our work a part of our liberation. Let us begin with the most immediate challenge for most people: stress. Workplace stress often feels like an external force being imposed upon us: the demanding boss, the impossible deadline, the overwhelming workload. But the Buddhist perspective reveals that while the external pressures are real, our suffering is magnified by our internal reaction to them. The practice, then, is to work with our own mind. One of the most powerful and discreet tools we have is mindful breathing. Before you enter a stressful meeting, before you answer that difficult email, before you make a call you've been dreading, simply pause. Take 3 conscious breaths. Feel the sensation of the cool air entering your nostrils and the warm air leaving. Feel your abdomen rise and fall. This simple, silent act, which no one else even needs to notice, is a powerful circuit breaker. It interrupts the spiraling momentum of anxious thought and grounds you firmly in the present moment. It is a way of creating a small, portable island of calm in the midst of any storm. You can also practice a mini body scan right at your desk. Notice the tension you are holding. Is it in your shoulders, hunched up towards your ears? Is it in your jaw clenched tight? Is your breathing shallow and rapid? Simply by bringing a kind, non-judgmental awareness to these physical sensations of stress, you can begin to consciously release them. Gently drop your shoulders. Soften your jaw. Allow your breath to deepen. You are not fighting the stress. You are simply creating the conditions for it to dissolve. Next, we bring this awareness to our relationships with our colleagues. Every workplace is a complex ecosystem of different personalities, and it is almost inevitable that we will encounter people with whom we have friction. This is a rich opportunity to practice compassion. We all know the difficult colleague, the one who is overly critical, competitive, or negative. Our habitual reaction is to meet their negativity with our own, to engage in gossip, or to build a wall of resentment. The practice of metta offers a different way. When you have to interact with this person, you can silently, internally, wish them well. You can remind yourself that their unskillful behavior is likely coming from a place of their own deep-seated fear, insecurity, or suffering. This does not mean you become a doormat or condone their actions. It means you change your own internal climate. By responding with a measure of inner compassion rather than reactive anger, you protect your own peace of mind and are often able to engage with them much more skillfully and effectively. The principles of right speech are also a powerful guide for workplace communication. How many meetings are dominated by ego, by people talking over one another, not to communicate, but to assert their own importance? How much workplace culture is damaged by gossip and backbiting? The practice is to become an agent of conscious communication. Before you speak, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say true, beneficial, and necessary? When others are speaking, practice mindful listening. Instead of formulating your own response while they are talking, give them the gift of your full, undivided attention. You will be amazed at how this simple shift can transform team dynamics and foster a culture of mutual respect. This leads us to view our work through the deeper lens of right livelihood, not just as an ethical screen for choosing a profession, but as a source of daily motivation. Many of us feel that our jobs are meaningless, that we are just a cog in a machine, but we can bring a sense of meaning and service to almost any work by shifting our intention. Even if your job is not overtly saving the world, you can find the element of service within it. If you are a cleaner, you are creating a space of order and health for others. If you work in customer service, you have the daily opportunity to help people solve their problems and to treat them with kindness. If you are an accountant, you are creating clarity and order out of financial chaos. The practice is to shift your focus away from what you can get from your job, the paycheck, the status, the promotion, and towards what you can give. How can I be of service in this task, in this meeting, in this moment? This simple internal reframing can infuse even the most mundane work with a profound sense of purpose. There is a beautiful story of a master carpenter renowned for his exquisite work. When asked his secret, he revealed that he did not obsess over the final price of the furniture or the praise he would receive from his clients. His peace and his mastery came from his complete absorption in the process itself. When he was sawing a piece of wood, his entire world was the line of the saw. When he was carving a joint, his mind was one with the wood and the chisel. His fulfillment was found not in the future reward, but in the present moment integrity of the work itself. This is a powerful lesson for all of us. We can find our peace not by waiting for Friday afternoon, but by bringing our full, mindful attention to the task at hand, whatever it may be. Finally, the most profound practice we can bring to our work is the wisdom of impermanence and not self. So many of us fuse our identity, our very sense of self-worth, with our job. We think, I am a manager, or I am a failure. We ride the emotional roller coaster of professional life, soaring with praise and crashing with criticism. The wisdom of Anatta, not self, reminds us that our job is a role we are playing. It is not who we are. Our fundamental value as a being is not determined by our title, our salary, or our performance review. You are not your success, and you are not your failure. They are simply impermanent events that pass through your life. By doing our work with diligence and integrity, but releasing our clinging to the outcome, we unhook ourselves from this roller coaster. We find a more stable and reliable source of well-being within ourselves, one that is not dependent on the fickle validation of the outside world. The workplace, then, with all its inherent difficulties, becomes our dojo, our meditation hall. It offers us countless daily opportunities to practice patience, to transform stress, to communicate with compassion, and to let go of the ego. By consciously applying these timeless principles, we do not just become more effective or productive employees, we become freer, calmer, and more whole human beings. We learn that peace is not something we desperately seek after a long day at work, but something we can bring into our work moment by moment by moment. Having now seen how this path can be woven into our digital and professional lives, we are prepared for our final step to integrate all of these threads into a single, cohesive tapestry, a complete and awakened way of living in the world. We have journeyed together through the great, winding landscape of the path of awakening. We began in the labyrinth of modern dissatisfaction, diagnosed the nature of our unease with the Four Noble Truths, and then systematically walked the Noble Eightfold Path, our guide to freedom. We have explored how to apply this ancient wisdom to the most pressing challenges of our contemporary lives, from the digital realm to the workplace. And now, we arrive at the final stage of our exploration, the weaving together of all these threads into a single, seamless tapestry. This is the integrated path, a way of living where the distinction between practice and life begins to dissolve, and every moment becomes an opportunity for awakening. It is essential to understand that awakening is not a final destination, a grand, singular event where all our problems vanish forever. This is a pervasive myth that can create a great deal of striving and disappointment. The path is not a ladder we climb to a heavenly realm of perfection. It is rather a continuous and gradual process of unfolding, like a flower opening to the sun. It is a process of becoming more awake, more aware, and more compassionate, moment by moment by moment. There will still be difficult days. There will still be moments of frustration, flashes of anger, and waves of sadness. The difference is that our relationship to these experiences has fundamentally changed. We no longer identify with them. We are no longer tossed about by every inner storm. We become the calm, spacious sky that can hold all the passing weather of our minds without being defined by it. The beauty of this path is not in arriving at a destination, but in the quality of awareness and kindness we bring to the walking of it. This integration is fostered by a harmonious balance between what we can call formal practice and informal practice. Formal practice is the time we deliberately set aside to train the mind, much like an athlete goes to the gym to train the body. This is our sitting meditation, whether it be 10 minutes or an hour a day. It is the time we spend systematically cultivating mindfulness of the breath, intentionally developing loving kindness, or deeply contemplating the truths of impermanence and not self. This formal practice is the bedrock. It is where we sharpen the tools, strengthen the muscles of attention and compassion, and deepen our understanding in a controlled environment. Without this dedicated, consistent effort, our ability to bring these qualities into the chaos of daily life will be weak and unreliable. Informal practice, then, is where the fruits of that training are expressed. It is the application of mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion in the midst of our ordinary activities. Life itself becomes our meditation cushion. Washing the dishes becomes a practice of feeling the warm water and the texture of the soap, a simple dance of presence. Driving in traffic becomes an opportunity to practice patience and to silently wish other drivers well. A difficult conversation with a loved one becomes a field for mindful listening and compassionate speech. We learn to see every moment, no matter how mundane or how challenging, as an opportunity to wake up. The ultimate goal of the integrated path is to close the gap between how we are on the cushion and how we are in the world until there is no longer any difference. Our entire life becomes a fluid, living meditation. As this integration deepens, we begin to discover a profound and sustainable source of happiness, one that is not dependent on external circumstances. We have all been conditioned to live on what is called the hedonic treadmill, the endless pursuit of the next pleasant experience. We believe that if we can just get that promotion, buy that house, find that perfect partner, or go on that exotic vacation, then we will finally be happy. But as we have seen, all these things are impermanent, and the happiness they provide is fleeting. The integrated path offers a way off this treadmill. It teaches us to find joy not in grand stimulation, but in radical simplicity. It is the joy found in the taste of a fresh piece of fruit, fully savored. It is the contentment found in the warmth of the sun on our skin on a cool morning. It is the quiet peace of watching the rain fall outside our window. It is the simple, profound happiness of a moment of genuine, heartfelt connection with another person. When the mind is calm and present, it no longer needs to be constantly entertained. It can appreciate the subtle beauty and wonder that is always available in the ordinary moments of our lives. We realize that we do not need to constantly acquire more to be happy. Peace and contentment are our birthright, available right here and now if we only have the presence of mind to notice them. This leads to the final expression of the integrated path, living with an open heart and a quiet mind. We have cultivated the four great qualities of the heart, known as the divine abodes. We have metta, loving kindness, the wish for all to be happy. We have karuna, compassion, the heart's response to suffering. We have also implicitly touched upon mudita, or sympathetic joy, the ability to rejoice in the happiness and success of others without envy. And all of these are balanced by the fourth, upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is the quality of a mind that has found its unshakable center. It is a spacious, balanced, and non-reactive presence that can meet all the changing circumstances of life with grace. It is not a cold indifference, but a profound peace born from the deep understanding of impermanence. With equanimity, we can experience the 10,000 joys of life success, love, health, without clinging to them desperately. And we can endure the 10,000 sorrows, failure, loss, sickness without being destroyed by them. It is the steady heart that knows, with absolute certainty, this too shall pass. It allows us to participate fully in life with an open and engaged heart while remaining free from the turbulent ups and downs of hope and fear. There is a beautiful and profound symbol in Zen Buddhism that captures the spirit of this integrated path, the enso, a circle hand drawn in a single, uninhibited brushstroke. An enso is not a perfect geometric circle. It is often slightly uneven, and there is typically a small gap left where the circle does not quite close. And yet, in its raw, human imperfection, it is seen as a symbol of completeness, of wholeness, of enlightenment. It represents the universe, and it represents our own original true nature. It teaches us that awakening is not about achieving some flawless, static state of perfection. It is about embracing the perfect imperfection of this very moment. It is about living with a mind that is at once disciplined and free, focused and at ease, fully engaged with life and yet utterly at peace. The integrated path, then, is a lifelong commitment to living in this way, to meeting each moment with awareness, to acting in the world with integrity, and to responding to all of life with a wise and compassionate heart. It is the art of finding freedom, not by changing the world around us, but by transforming our relationship to it. Having walked this entire journey together, from the recognition of our shared modern suffering to the discovery of the tools for our liberation, we are now ready to step back to take one final look at the entire landscape of this path, to distill its most essential, life-giving message, and to empower ourselves to take the first simple, courageous step on our own journey home. Our long journey together now draws to a close. We began in a familiar landscape, a modern world shimmering with promise, yet leaving so many of us with a feeling of profound inner thirst. We stood before the empty wells of material success, constant distraction, and fleeting pleasures, wondering why our souls felt so dry. We gave a name to this deep, underlying sense of dissatisfaction, this feeling that something is not quite right. We called it Dukkha. With courage, we chose not to turn away from it, but to look deeply into its nature. We discovered that its source was not in the world outside of us, but in the habits of our own minds, in our relentless craving for things to be different than they are, in our clinging to pleasure, in our aversion to pain. And then, in the midst of this diagnosis, a light appeared. We discovered the breathtaking possibility that this suffering could have an end, that our thirst could be quenched. We were given a map, an ancient and timeless guide leading out of the desert and towards the cool, clear springs of inner freedom. This was the Noble Eightfold Path. Together we walked this path, step by step. We learned how to cultivate wisdom, to see the world and ourselves with a new clarity. We learned how to live with integrity, to align our actions and our words with our deepest values. We learned how to train the mind, to cultivate a heart of boundless loving kindness and unshakable compassion. We have seen how this path is not an escape from life, but a way to engage with it more fully, more wisely, and more gracefully. If there is one essential truth to carry with you from this entire journey, let it be this: peace is not a destination you must struggle to get to. It is a home you learn to return to. We spend so much of our lives searching for peace outside of ourselves, believing it lies in the next achievement, the next relationship, or the next perfect circumstance. But the world is, by its very nature, impermanent and unpredictable. The winds will always blow. The storms will always come. The true peace taught on this path is not the absence of storms, but the discovery of an unshakable shelter within your own heart. It is the cultivation of a calm, spacious, and loving awareness that can hold all of life's joys and sorrows with a steady and gentle embrace. You do not have to go anywhere to find this peace. You do not have to become anyone else. You simply have to come home to the quiet presence of your own being. This profound journey does not begin with some grand, intimidating act. It does not demand that you renounce the world or change everything about your life overnight. It begins with a single, simple, gentle step. It begins with a quiet intention to be just 1% more aware today than you were yesterday. It begins with the decision to pause and take one conscious breath in the middle of a busy and stressful day. It begins with one moment of choosing a kind response over a reactive one. It begins with the courage to simply notice your own thoughts without judgment and the compassion to forgive yourself when you stumble. You have everything you need to begin right now in this very moment. The path is not in a distant land or an ancient text. It is in your own breath, your own heart, your own mind. The gate is always open. The first step is yours to take.